Hello, romance lovers. Today's story is called The Holy Wound Became a Villain. If you enjoy our videos, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss out on more exciting stories. A young lady extends her hands to a little boy. Meanwhile, his mother claims that this child was attacked by a magical beast, after which she turns to the holy lady and asks her to help the boy. The young lady then uses her power and heals the boy's bruise. The boy looks at this through tears and is very surprised. And when the young lady finishes healing, the young man looks at his hand in shock because it is as good as new, after which he admires these powers and thanks the holy lady. The boy's mother also bows and thanks the holy lady. The main character then says goodbye to them with a smile. The girl also understands that this temple is for sick or crippled people. Holy healers help, and this is a sacred place. And all these girls are candidates for sainthood, and their task is to heal the sick. The young lady at this time is healing the wound on her hand and realizes that she works in this temple. Well, then the other saints start whispering among themselves and asking if it's really disgusting. One of the girls then claims that she cannot believe that the young lady cannot cure a person without transferring his symptoms onto herself. And it's so ugly, because the young lady suffers so much every day. Then the girls claim that they are not like her and she is an imperfect saint. The main character then realizes that her abilities have one peculiarity. After all, she takes on a person's injury and then gets treated. And for her, this is the only way to heal. But the girl understands that this is how she repays her debt to the temple for sheltering her there. When her parents have fallen into eternal sleep and she understands that this is the best thing she can do if she can heal someone. The girl thinks that no matter how much pain and suffering she has to endure, if she tries, she will get through it, and besides, she has another unnecessary ability that she hides. At this time, someone puts a hand on the main character's shoulder and then turns to her and suggests working hard today. The young lady sees her friend and smiles. Well, the girl then hugs her and tells Rua not to think about what those children are telling her, because she always performs her duties diligently and never makes mistakes. That's why they are such good friends. The main character then turns to Ariana and says that she is so grateful to her for everything. After all, if she weren't there, she wouldn't have been able to endure all this. And the girl then replies that of course they are friends. But at this time, the girl turns to Rua and points to one guy and then asks, "Could this really be Mr. Galt?" The young lady then replies that it is true. She understands that at that time, as soon as she began the divine service, she was very nervous. Well, then the guy turned to the saint, and showing the wound on his hand, he asked if she could help him. The girl then replied that of course she had used her power earlier. However, it didn't work then, and the wound still remained. The young lady then bowed and cried out an apology and also asked to be allowed to do it again. However, when she repeated this process, she realized that nothing was working and she did not understand how she would cope with this in the future. Then the young lady still used her power once more and healed him. The guy then put his hand on the girl's shoulder and claimed that everyone has failures at first. But maybe she will want to become his future saint. After all, he too will try for the future of their country. So let her not lose heart either. Since then, the young lady keeps these words in her heart. Galt also tried hard and rose to the rank of knight commander, so the girl understands that she must try too. And now she only looks at the knight with gratitude. Well, then Ariana turns to her friend with a grin and says that she will soon drill a hole in the guy with her gaze. The main character then screams that it is not true, and the girl then claims that she thinks about it, that Galt and Rua look good together. The main character then only gets embarrassed, and her friend then claims that it is not written anywhere that saints cannot fall in love. So she takes Rua's hands and says that she blesses them, because she wishes only happiness for her dearest friend. The main character then answers with a smile on her face that she also loves Ariana very much, and if she manages to find a loved one, then she will tell her about it. And the girl then replies with a smile on her face that of course, after which they take a pinky oath. A little while later, one of the temple workers is already running and screaming for them to carry it faster. The young lady then wonders what happened. Well, then she is shocked to realize that Mr. Galt is being carried on a stretcher, and the girl thinks why this happened. The young lady looks at the guy who is barely breathing and thinks why it had to be him. At this time, someone claims that he was attacked by a magical beast while he was protecting his subordinates. But even the powers of holy healers are unlikely to help here, because the guy has very serious wounds and apparently his hero's path will end there. The main character then realizes in shock that this cannot be, and then she decides to heal Galt herself. A little while later, the girl enters the room where the young man is lying, and when he comes in, he thinks that no matter how painful and excruciating it may be, she will save him. Even if she risks her life, she still wants to save this guy. After this, the young man's wounds begin to heal, and he looks as if he was never wounded. However, all these wounds are transferred to the young lady. Ita then thinks that everything is fine now. The girl looks at Galt and understands that she also needs to rest, after which she leaves there and only to her room. And when she finally lies down, she thinks how her whole body hurts, and she doesn't even have time to heal. The girl then closes her eyes and silhouettes begin to appear, after which the young lady wonders if these are really the same ones. Memories that flash by in the moment before falling into eternal sleep. And apparently she will say goodbye to her life. The girl then closes her eyes, from which tears are already beginning to flow. But a little while later, she wakes up in shock and thinks, did she really survive? The girl then thinks that Mr. Galt should have recovered too, and she also wants to see Ariana's face, meet, and talk to her. However, then the maid who is looking after the young lady, he asks if she has woken up. The main character then wants to say something, but the woman only claims that the girl quit her job, and she was chilling out God knows where, and the young lady was then wondering what she was talking about. The woman continues and claims that the young lady lay in bed for a month after receiving these terrible injuries, and she of course sympathizes, but no one came to visit such a pathetic person like her. The young lady is then shocked and wonders what she is talking about, but the woman at this time claims that it would be better if she didn't wake up. The young lady is still perplexed, but thinks that something else is more important now, after which she asks, what about Mr. Galt? The maid then replies that it is his wounds. Madame Ariana cured him, risking her life. And the main character then thinks about what she is talking about, but the woman then only claims that, unlike her, Aranana is a true saint. Rua still cannot understand what she means and what it means that Ariana healed the guy, but the woman then replies that she will tell you in a few words, and first of all, those two are having a great time together. And secondly, a decision was made about getting married the other day. A little while later, the main character is already rushing down the corridor and wondering why Ariana and Galt got together. And why did this happen? At this time, everyone around is talking about how Ariana and Galt are suitable for each other. And after all, the guy became the commander of the Knights at such a young age. That's why he is a true national hero. And he also quickly resolved the conflict with a neighboring state. And recently, the Knights fought with magical beasts and suffered numerous losses, but they still stood firm against such enemies. And the Count's daughter, Ariana, healed the commander, risking her life as befits a true saint. The main character then thinks that even if Ariana healed him, her body still hurts. Meanwhile, the girls in the hallway claim that Rua is the complete opposite of Ariana, and that this girl is not even suitable as a candidate for sainthood. One of the girls then claims that she heard that a young lady ran away from the church to have fun with some boy, and her friend claims that she got injured then, so she had business to do. And there are also rumors that this is not the first time this has happened. And the girl now claims that she doesn't understand at all why the high priest accepted such a girl into the temple. After all, she even heard that Mrs. Ariana took over her duties, so what a shameless girl. And she also makes such a modest face. That's why now the girls are saying that this young lady is simply a disgrace to the temple. One of them claims that this is the pure truth because she is. I heard all this from Mrs. Ariana. At this time, the main character is breathing heavily and wondering if Ariana really spread all these terrible rumors. A little while later, the young lady is already running up to the two. She tries to catch her breath, and Ariana asks if Rua has woken up yet. The girl then tells her friend to listen, after which he turns to Ariana and says that this is some kind of misunderstanding. After all, she is her friend and once said. However, the girl only screams after this and asks what Rua is trying to do, after which she turns to Galt and tells him to help her. At this time, the guy just looks menacingly at the main character, after which he pushes her away and asks what she wants from Ari. The young lady then falls to the floor. Galt in shock, he asks what he is doing. However, after this, the guy only claims that Ari told him everything and that Rua pretended to be her friend, used and abused her. This is such inappropriate behavior. Therefore, the girl deserves only contempt. The young lady then realizes in shock that this is all not true, and then the girl tries to say that she healed all his wounds. But when she sees this guy's gaze on her, she understands that all this is useless, and no matter what she says, they won't believe her anyway. But then the girl thinks why she used her healing abilities. At this time, the guy turns to Ari and says that they are leaving. At this time, the girl touches the main character's face and says how shriveled and unhappy she is. But she had long dreamed of seeing such an expression on her face. The girl also claims that Rua was a good toy and helped pass the time. And now Ariana asks why the girl can't forgive her. After all, they are best friends. After this, Ariana leaves and leaves Rua alone with her thoughts. The main character then remembers the one she loved. And now she starts laughing and also claims how stupid she was. And she's always been alone. All the stress is causing the young lady's hair to lose its color. At this time, several drunkards and one of them approach the young lady. He screams that the girl is in the way, and another asks what the holy lady has forgotten in such a place. After which one of the men says that they should look because this can't be, and he asks if his friends have ever seen such white hair on non-sick people. But when the main character doesn't answer, one of them grabs her by the hair and tells her not to be silent but to answer something. The main character then tells him not to touch her, after which she grabs his hand and the man is a little surprised. But then he feels pain, and in shock he asks what the hell, after which he falls to the floor and screams that it hurts a lot. The other guy then asks what happened, and the young lady understands that she has always hidden this power, which is the complete opposite of healing. That's why now the girl looks at her hand with a smile on her face and understands that it is much more useful than healing. After which, Rua decides that she is bigger, doesn't intend to heal anyone. At this time, a guy who is behind a tree is also watching her. Is there a legend that several hundred years ago, during the time when a plague was raging in the kingdom of Zito, one girl with healing powers saved the people and a temple was built to worship the goddess Rush? The temple is an independent institution in which the royal power does not dare to interfere, and girls who have the same abilities as Rush. They serve as saints and are used to heal people, and it is believed that the ability to heal appears in girls up to 10 years old. And also they are usually born into aristocratic families. Outstanding candidates are officially elevated to the rank of saint, a title that ranks alongside royalty. There are currently several candidates for sainthood in the temple. However, the place of the saint has been empty for 10 years because a worthy candidate has not yet been found. The girl now understands that until she became an orphan, she lived in the Baron's family, and she dreamed of becoming a saint. Now the young lady just sighs and then realizes that several days have already passed, but the hair color did not return. And the young lady realizes that she was in severe shock after she was plunged into eternal sleep, reaching the limit of her abilities. So now the young lady remembers her friend and thinks what she should do now. But at this time, someone comes up to the girl from behind and screams for her friends to just take a look, because she is a defective saint, after which they ask what she forgot there. The main character just ignores these girls, but then one of them asks what is this and what is wrong with her hair, because it is white. The main character still doesn't pay any attention to them, but then the girls stop having fun, after which one of them approaches the young lady and slams her hand on the table, after which he asks if the girl is listening to her. The main character after this only smiles and asks if he is talking about her, after which she asks for forgiveness, but claims that her name is not a defective saint, which is why she did not understand. The lady with purple hair then only asks what she is talking about the main game, not understanding that these girls had teased her before. They could pour water on her or ruin her clothes. But Ariana always stood up for her, and now the main character understands that the girls stopped their bullying, but all this time, she was no different from them and made her believe in their friendship in order to laugh. Now the main character takes her cup of tea and realizes that she was so afraid of those girls. And now one of them is screaming that this rose garden is intended for the rest of candidates for sainthood. Therefore, the girl should not appear there. After which she knocks the mug of tea out of the young lady's hands, after which he starts laughing. However, after this, the main character only takes her by the hand and tells her to shut up, after which he asks if the girl could just shut up for a second. The lady with purple hair then screams that she suddenly felt a heat on her hand, and then the girl screams in horror from the pain, and when she sees a bruise on her hand, she asks what it is. Rua understands that she has always hidden this ability, but she can take the illness and wounds of those who are being treated and has always healed herself. But in reality, a girl can return the pain that she took in the past to other people, and she once accidentally used this terrible power on her mother. The little girl also thought that she would never see this ability again. However, now she only looks at the girl who is writhing in pain. One of the girls then screams for the purple-haired lady to heal quickly, but her friends then say that they don't know for sure. And they are scared, after which one of them turns to the other and screams for her to do it. But the girl only refuses and says that suddenly something will appear for her too. The main character then realizes that the burn she transferred to this lady once belonged to her. Then the girls ran around the room with the sick people, and one of them screamed that this man was hurt by the fire of the magical beast and his legs are injured, so let someone heal him quickly. The main character immediately approached him and began to use her powers. However, when the girl took on the wounds, she realized that it was very painful. Ariana then just sat down on the floor and said that she was tired, after which the girl also turned to Rua and asked if she would take on a couple of her patients. The main character was a little surprised then and understood that she was already at her limit, and Ariana had only cured 2. But the girl then only claimed that she was friends and therefore should help each other in difficult times, after which she asked if this was true. And the main character, looking at her friend, understood that she always stood up for her, so she still agreed. The girl was only happy about this and said that she adored Rua. The main character then answered with a smile on her face that she also loved Ariana very much. And now the young lady understands that she was really stupid then and did not notice anything. Now the main character is snapping her fingers, after which the lady with purple hair is in shock that the years have passed, and her friend asks what happened. Rua understands that somewhere in the depths of her mind, Ariana, whom I have long looked down on, and the girls whom I think are the same, do not even know what she is capable of. But this is a wonderful ability. After this, the main character heads back into the room and realizes that this would have happened anyway. And now the girl understands that it is time for her to return to her room. But then someone turns to her and asks for forgiveness, after which the guy asks if Miss Rua Restado is a plant. After this, the young lady sees Svenzito crown in front of her and understands that this is the second prince, who has a reputation as a capable and insightful young man. The prince, who is also dazzlingly handsome, claims that he would like to distract her for a minute because the girl knows about the dark side, this temple. But the young lady then asks what dark side he is talking about and what he needs. The guy then just extends his hand and says that the girl has such wonderful talents, after which he asks why she doesn't take his side and take revenge. After this, the main character looks at the guy's hand in shock. And a little while later, they are already walking through the garden of the royal castle. The young lady realizes that she is there for the first time. And yet, it is more beautiful and serene than the garden in the temple. His Highness at this time states that he has ordered everyone to leave the garden so that no one will disturb them, after which he suggests that they sit down. And then the main character does something like this and asks what His Highness Sven is doing. I meant the dark side of the temple. At this time, the guy replies that when they are alone, then let her address him by name. And as soon as they unite, they can speak even more casually, but the young lady then claims that they are not accomplices, after which he looks at the prince with hostility. However, he only smiles, then stirs his tea and asks what the girl thinks about the fact that since last year, the state has been suffering losses due to clashes with magical beasts. The young lady then asks if he wants to know what she thinks about the guy, and the boy asks if she finds it all strange. After all, they were originally located in the territories of foreign forests and wastelands. They could only be found in certain habitats from the coil, but they were not found in their country until recently. And now the guy claims that suddenly magical beasts began to appear inside the state in different places and attack citizens. The main character then asks if someone is controlling these creatures and points them at people, and the guy then replies that she hit the nail on the head, after which he claims that this someone is the head of the temple. The guy also claims that he suspects the head of all the clergy, and the main character then asks in shock if he is talking about His Holiness. The young lady also remembers that when her family was plunged into eternal sleep due to a mysterious rare disease, those who learned of her power, and it was he who invited me to his place. So now the main character asks for goodbye, but says that she is confused. After all, even if the guy is right, then why would he do that? But then he answers that it is for that one, to obtain the unquestioning loyalty of citizens. And the more wounds, the more work the candidates have. But for the sake of helping the victims, the faith of the people is concentrated in a holy place, and this place is comparable in importance to the royal palace. The head of the clergy increases the authority of the church and can govern the entire country. And then the girl screams that this is simply disgusting egoism, and that crippling people and manipulating believers for one's own interests is simply disgusting. The guy then replies that she is right, and he doesn't think the guy is working on this alone. After all, 3 families of aristocrats who donate large sums of money to the temple are also involved, and their family is headed by Count Torbius. The young lady is shocked to understand this, that this is Ariana's house and our girl is involved in this. His Highness now claims that the head of the clergy is likely made a deal with someone who has the ability to control magical creatures. And his spies reported that this was Yuen from the Western people. The main character then thinks that she is hearing this name for the first time, after which she asks if His Highness was really busy with the investigation all this time. The guy then replies that this is true, but there is one thing that he will not be able to cope with. However, if she does not help in exposing the crime of the head of the clergy and 3 families of aristocrats, then everything may work out. After which, the prince extends his hand and the main character only asks why it has to be her. And the guy asks if he hasn't already answered this question. And after all, she has everything, abilities and opportunities, and he's not talking about the power of healing, and about the power that is capable of causing pain. After which, he asks the girl if she minds if he calls her that. The guy also claims that this power should be used wisely. And the young lady then realizes that her ability has already been discovered, and she didn't really think about it. Is there any benefit to having this power? So I hardly used it. But the prince is very perceptive. And the guy at this time claims that she will still have a wonderful opportunity to take revenge on Miss Torbius. The prince then claims that this is very, very mean, but they are not friends anymore. The main character then asks for forgiveness, but claims that she hasn't made a decision yet. And the girl asks if he will give her time to think about it. His Highness replies that of course, and he will hope for a positive answer. A little while later, the young lady is already heading down the corridor and understands that if everything he said was really true, then she cannot leave this situation without attention, because when deciding such an important issue, one cannot make a mistake. And she is no longer the idiot she was just recently. So she must personally verify the truth of his words. Then the young lady is already going outside and she hears someone calling Galt, and it turns out to be Ariana. She asks if the guy is hurt anywhere, and the young man replies that everything is fine. After which, the girl with blonde hair laughs and says that yes, she does. But even if he gets hurt, he doesn't have to worry. After all, if she healed him when he was on the verge of falling into eternal sleep, then now she can definitely cope. Galt then says with a smile on his face how kind Ari is. After which, he hugs the girl and thanks her for saving him. And he also claims that next time he will definitely protect her too. At this time, the main character is just hiding around the corner. And when he is about to leave, someone turns to Rua. And when the girl turns around, she sees the head priest there, who asks if the girl is feeling better now. The young lady realizes that this is the head of the clergy, Phrixus. Ronhatson he is a minister of the church who chose candidates for sainthood, and also the owner of a calm disposition and respect of others with one single drawback. At this time, the man turns to the main character and says that he is glad to see that she is already better, but he does not encourage her willful walk outside the church grounds, and hopes that she will think before doing something like that again. The young lady then only bows and says that of course, and she herself understands that the source of such vile rumors is Ariana, and you don't need to be a genius to come to such an obvious conclusion. But this does not prove her guilt in the attacks of magical beasts. At this time, the man says that since she has come to her senses, she should begin to perform her duties, to work immediately. And she always worked without leaving a minute for rest. Even when everyone else was enjoying their weekend, it's worth remembering that this was actually an order from His Holiness. The man addressed Rua and claimed that since she had not yet grown to the level of the other candidates, doesn't she think that she should give it her all for her own good? And the girl now thinks whether she should really put herself out there for her own good, after which she realizes that she should learn more. A little while later, the young lady comes to the library and realizes that this is the royal library with its impressive collection. After which, the girl understands that maybe she can find something else about what His Highness Sven told her, as well as about the Yuan family. Because firstly, the distinctive feature of the people from the Western country is the golden color of the eyes and the dark skin tone, and more precisely, the Wan clan. Then they are an ethnic minority living deep in the forest, and they speak a unique language, and also have the power to control magical creatures. In addition, their characteristic feature is a mark on their neck with an image of scales. The young lady then thinks about all these factors and realizes that she was not aware of any of this. At this time, someone turns to Rua and says that they haven't seen each other since yesterday. It turns out to be His Highness, and the main character then thinks why the distance instantly decreased. Well then, the girl rises and greets His Highness Sven. The guy then greets her back and tells her to sit down. And he also claims that it is very wise of her to come there herself to find confirmation of his words in the books. After which, the prince asks if she has decided anything about the head of the clergy. And the young lady replies that she doesn't know yet. And His Highness says that nevertheless, she has studied Yuan. He then points to the guy standing behind him and claims that it is Shiji. The guy then claims that he is glad to meet the lady candidate for sainthood. And the young lady, looking at him, understands that he has golden eyes and dark skin. The prince at this time replies that this is Shiji Ruben, and he is an excellent assistant who can be trusted. Shiji is from the common people who came from the Western country, and he was invited to serve. Thanks to her abilities, the young lady then realizes that it is quite obvious that the appointment of foreigners to the royal service It has long been perceived negatively, and apparently, His Highness Sven is a man free from prejudice. The guy now claims that Shiji has no direct ties to the Yuan clan, but he was able to learn a lot from conversations with merchants he met along the way. Therefore, if a girl wants to know more, he can help her study this topic. The young lady then rises from her seat, bows, and says that she is pleased to meet you. And the guy claims that he will do everything for the good of His Highness. And the main character thinks how devoted he is, and the prince claims that before leaving, he wanted to say something. Then he says that if the head of the clergy decides to make the next move, then it will probably happen when everyone is already asleep. The young lady is then a little surprised by this, and the prince, leaving, claims that she wanted to see everything for herself so that she would have a chance. After which, His Highness leaves the room. And when he heads up the stairs, he is smiling and wondering if the goddess he was looking for is really her. A few days later, the main character is already heading down the corridor in the middle of the night and realizes that in order to check the words of His Highness Sven, she sneaked out of the room, but the girl understands that there is nothing suspicious there, even remotely concerning the head of the clergy. And also, if someone notices her, they will again decide that she is running away to spend the night with a man, and will spread new ridiculous rumors. Although the main character understands that she doesn't care about it anymore, and she hopes that it won't be here for long. Well, then the girl sees someone's silhouette flashing in the window and then wonders if someone just walked by there. The girl then follows him and realizes that this is a prayer tower and they were planning to demolish it. But in the end, they just left it unattended. After which the girl begins to look around and sees a man standing near the tower. The main character understands that this is the assistant to the head of the clergy. And the man at this time says that the guy is late and asks where she was. The young man then apologizes and claims that the area is huge and it's easy to get lost. The main character is then a little surprised because this language as well. The mark on her neck is just like that of the people who can control monsters. So now the girl thinks that it is good that Mr. Shiji taught her some words, and she can understand some things. At this time, the head's assistant tells the guy not to keep His Holiness waiting and to hurry. And the main character then sees in shock that the head of the clergy is actually coming out of there. After which she wonders if they really made a deal, and she wants to see everything with her own eyes. The girl also understands that if she manages to distract the guards, she will be able to slip away. Well, then she looks at her hand and thinks that if she uses her power wisely, it might work. After which the young lady realizes that she only has one chance and thinks that her ability cannot be used without touching. So now she approaches the guard and turns to him. At this time, the man asks who she is and what she forgot there in the middle of the night. And the girl replies that she is a new servant in the temple, but got lost and found herself there. After which she asks if the guy can tell her where the servants live. The assistant to the head then sighs and says that we need to return to that building, after which he points the way. And the main character then claims that he simply saved her and thanks the guy. After which she grabs his hand, and at the same moment the man feels a sharp pain in his head. He screams that his head is splitting and then faints from the pain. And the young lady understands that she transferred the headache to him, which could well provoke a fainting fit. And now in her thoughts, she asks for forgiveness for this. But she understands that she also experienced this once, after which she goes into the tower and snaps her fingers, recalling this pain. The girl sneaks through the boxes of something and gets close enough to hear them. The head of the clergy date time claims that he hopes this time the guy will show high results again. After all, the attack on the village of Morani was successful. And the young man replies that, of course, control over magical creatures and animals comes easily to him, and the leader will get what he wants. The young lady then realizes that she can definitely make out the words about the attack of the magical Isbai on the village, and that the head of the clergy is involved after all. But then the young lady looks out from behind the boxes and wonders who is behind her. And the other girl at this time turns to His Holiness and tells him to listen. The young lady then realizes in shock that this voice belongs to Ariana. And the young lady at this time asks if she is still a candidate, and then claims that she wants to take the place of the saint as soon as possible. Well, the man then replies that they are only at the beginning of the journey and asks how many days have passed since the moment when the head of the knights agreed to marry her, when he hinted to him. The main character at this time closes her mouth in horror and realizes that Ariana has intertwined with His Holiness in order to marry the commander of the knights. And all this is for the sake of the place of the saint. The girl at this time is only happy and replies that yes, thanks to him, everything is going well. And also, the Holy Virgin Ari is suitable for a folk hero in the Galt family, and she decided so long ago. The head of the clergy at this time says that such popularity among the people will definitely be useful. And the lady with the blonde hair now says that her boyfriend still can't let go of his unhappy love and is constantly sad. The main character then thinks about what kind of unhappy love she is talking about and whether the guy still remembers her. And the lady with the blonde hair then argues that since they should support each other, then he said that he could love her. Or the girl now claims that she will make him suffer, and the main character is shocked and thinks how she can say such a thing. The lady with the blonde hair at this time says how impudent this pathetic defective saint is, although His Holiness should know better. And the main character is then shocked and wonders if the girl really always thought that way. But she really did trust her. The head priest at this time says that Rua herself is quite useful, and no matter what she says, Rua is a rather good-natured girl. The young lady then thinks about the word useful and wonders if she has really been a puppet all this time. The blonde claims that if everything continues like this, then they will manage without her as soon as she becomes a saint. Then the rest of the candidates will be her obedient dolls, and the priest then claims that he believes this to be so. But the first step still remains the use of magical beasts for the real purpose. The main character then thinks, what does the real goal mean? And is this really just the first stage? But when the girl turns around, she makes a rustling sound, and the young man with dark skin then becomes a little wary, after which he points to the box where the main character is sitting and claims that he heard a noise from there. So it seems that there is someone there. The main character then thinks what she should do, because she can't get caught. Then the prince's servant comes to the girl's aid. He takes the main character by the hand and drags her to him, after which he also releases several rats, and when the lady with blonde hair sees them, she screams in horror. And the young man then claims that this is the source of the noise. But then Ariana screams, what difference does it make? Because she can't stand disgusting, dirty creatures, so let the guy do something quickly. The main character at this time gets out of the tower. You understand that it is visible. For Ariana, she was no different from these rats. When they finally get out, the young woman thanks Mr. Shiji for helping her. And the guy then says that there is no reason, because it was an order from His Highness and he was keeping an eye on her and the head of the clergy. Then someone comes up to the two and greets Rua. It turns out to be His Highness, and he says that the moon is beautiful today. The girl then turns to His Highness, but the guy then only claims that he is surprised by her unexpected desire to take the initiative and did not expect that she would take such a risk. However, secretly spying on their gathering in a quiet tower is clearly not enough, because they can come up with as many excuses as they want. Shiji compliments His Highness's words and states that they therefore need to find irrefutable evidence. And the prince then claims that for this he will say it again. The prince then approaches the young lady and claims that he needs her strength, and asks if she wants to take revenge on them by making them pay for their crime. The main character thinks for a bit, and then remembers the betrayal of her friend and what kind of doll she was holding in the hands of the high priest. So now the girl just bites her lip and replies that she agrees to join forces, and she will never forgive them. The next morning, the young lady wakes up in bed and realizes that last night she sneaked into the place where the secret meeting was held. It was, of course, reckless on her part, but the girl still doubts whether she really understands what she needs to do now. The young lady stretches her body and realizes that she feels pretty good, after which she looks at the key that she put on the dresser and realizes that yesterday, His Highness Sven gave her something before leaving. The guy claimed that since they were now accomplices, the key was hers. The main character then accepted the key and asked what it was for, and the guy answered that there was his personal secret greenhouse in the royal palace, and this was the key to it. He also claimed that further strategic meeting would take place there, and let the girl try to make sure that no one notices her tomorrow at 3 o'clock, after which he kissed the young lady's hand and said that he would wait. And now the young lady thinks that His Highness is so pompous, but the young lady understands that she has decided to trust anyway, and will definitely prevent the conspiracy. The heads of the clergy and Ariana. A little while later, the young lady is already looking for a greenhouse, after which he approaches one building and thinks that it is probably here. The girl then inserts the key and opens the greenhouse door and also realizes that His Highness should have arrived already. Then the girl sees that the prince is already sitting at the table with a cup of tea and is a little surprised. Shiji approaches Mrs. Rua and then claims that they were waiting for her. And His Highness greets the girl from the secret greenhouse and tells her to sit down, after which the young lady does so and Shiji pours her tea. His Highness then claims that few people know of the existence of this place and that he made this place his secret hideout when he was a child. And the main character then asks if it's okay that he showed her such an important place. But the guy then replies that of course not, and didn't he say that they were accomplices, and they must share their secrets. The young lady then replies that it is good and she understands, And His Highness claims that he already said that since they are on the same side, let the girl talk more freely. Then he also suggests that from now on they maintain friendly relations. The young lady then asks if he is talking about friendly relations. And the prince replies that she can use this place for any purpose, and for example, next time she can read there in silence. And she loves books. The main character then realizes that His Highness is quite observant and even noticed how she admires the library. So he is still as perceptive, and the young lady then says that she understands and addresses the guy by his first name. And then he asks if they have a concrete plan. The young man is glad that Rua called him by name, after which he also points to the paper standing on the table. And when the young lady takes it in her hands, the prince asks if she knows this man. The main character looks at him and replies that yes, he is a dissolute Viscount. Viscount Rose Redmond is very popular, and there is no person in aristocratic society who does not know his name. The guy is a recognized heartthrob, and admirer of the female attention will run away with the number of love affairs. Redmond is a skilled orator and a skilled diplomat, but his notoriety overshadows all his achievements. The Viscount had a mother, but the son grew up far from her because of the woman's flighty nature. So said the temple maids. His Highness now points to this man and claims that he is the third member of the aristocracy to have united with the head of the clergy. His role is to use the Viscount's foreign policy skills to exchange unique goods with a Western country. However, Rose Redmond also needs to hide some of the goods from being transferred outside of this official transaction. So he thinks that they go to the Wan clan. And the young lady then claims that it is the entire clan that has the ability to control magical creatures. And this is the price of their help. The prince then replies that it is good that she understands this, but there is something else. After all, magical beasts are put to sleep and hidden at the bottom of boxes with goods, thereby organizing their transportation to the lands of their empire. Redmond, who is doing all this, it is his fault that innocent people are suffering, and the main character now thinks that she will not forgive him. His Highness at this time claims that if they get official documents testifying to the conclusion of this deal from their owner, then the crimes can be revealed publicly. After all, they will have evidence to expose the plan of the head of the clergy. And the young lady then states that their plan is to get these documents, but she also asks how they can do this. The guy then shows only a blue seal and claims that in the coming days a ball is planned in the house of a century before in honor of his birthday, and he is invited as a representative of the royal family. The young lady then asks if he wants to have a birthday parade and asks if the other members of the prince's family have stayed away, because if so, he is lucky. The young man then lies there laughing and claims that it is true, and the main character then notices that there is some kind of decoration hanging on Sven's ear. The boy then asks Rua what is it, and the young lady gets a little nervous and replies that it's nothing. Then she claims that apparently the prince is going to accept the invitation. The boy then replies that he does, after which he gets down on one knee and asks her if she wants to go with him. The main character then looks at his smile and realizes that he is pompous as she thought. Well, the girl still extends her hand and claims that if it helps her revenge, then she will gladly agree. At this time, Galt sits alone near the temple. But then Ariana comes up to him from behind and closes her eyes, after which she tells the guy to guess who it is, Ari with a smile on his face, and says that the girl scared him. The young lady then only smiles and claims that he recognized her right away because Galt loves her so much. The guy then only answers sheepishly, perhaps. And the girl claims that she came to him about one very important issue for her, after which she pulls an invitation out of her pocket and offers to go to the ball together. The young lady claims that she has received an invitation for her family and that it is a celebration of the Viscount's birthday. The girl claims that she is sure it will be luxurious and magnificent there. And Galt, a little puzzled, claims that he doesn't really like such lively places. Hey! The girl then asks if he really doesn't want to accompany her. But then she claims that she should go with Galt and suggests having a good time together at the reception. After this, the guy just gets embarrassed and replies that it's good if that's what she wants. Well then, several knights approach them and one of them screams, asking for forgiveness, and then turns to the commander. And he claims that this guy accidentally injured his leg during the fight. The guy immediately gets up and screams, what is he talking about after that? So that he can even look. The commander then claims that it looks too early and that if something is not done immediately, he could lose his leg altogether. Well then, the young man says that, however, they were lucky because Ari was right nearby. And if she saved him when he was close to falling into eternal sleep, then this wound will heal in an instant, after which the young man turns to Ari and says that she can help. Andre then says how lucky they are that the candidate for sainthood is there. The girl then realizes, a little puzzled, that lately Rua had always been helping her, so she hadn't used her ability for a long time. And the girl now thinks how tiring it is to heal someone, but it would be nice to patch him up and raise his reputation. But the girl understands that she just with great difficulty persuaded Galt to go to the ball with her. And she was so tired that now the girl is apologizing and saying that she would really, really like to help. But I've already overworked myself at the service today. Galt then says that here's how I claim that Ari is very hardworking, after which you say that you shouldn't overwork yourself so much, and then you should go to church with the guys, and ask another candidate to help, after which they say, okay, and head to the temple. S is obliged, then says that he hopes they will patch him up well. And then Ari says that it's too early and it's not very serious and he'll be fine. And it's not that important because they're going to the ball and that means she needs to choose a new dress. The girl also claims that she wants them to choose it together. Galt then agrees but thinks what does it mean not so important? And is it really that his subordinate is not important to her at all? But the guy then thinks that most likely everything is not so simple. Ari's thoughts are now occupied with the ball because she is impatiently waiting for it, and the guy thinks, isn't his bride cute? The girl at this time claims that she also wants new jewelry, and the knight commander says that he understood, after which he claims that there is much to buy. At this time, the high priest addresses them, and the girl then says that it seems that his holiness is calling her, after which she says goodbye to Galt and says that they will see each other again, and also let him not forget what they agreed on. The guy then simplifies and watches his wife leave. At this time, the main character looks at one of the dresses and realizes that there are still 5 days left until the ball, and after their decision to go to this celebration, the girl collected information about Redmond, and she completely forgot about clothes, so now she is thinking about what to wear. After all, she has neither an outfit nor jewelry, and almost everything she had was ruined during the stupid bullying, and she gave other things to Ariana on her whim. One day, the girl turned to Rua and said with admiration how beautiful her ribbon was. The main character then asked if it was true, after which she claimed that today the woman she had healed during the service had given her a handmade ribbon. Ariana then said that, as she claimed, if so, then there is only one like this in the world, and that is very cool. The girl also claimed that she would also like one. And the main character then turned to Ariana a little puzzled and said that the girl had untied her. But after that, the blonde, with a smile on her face, only claimed that she had taken a good look and asked if this color wasn't too bright for Rui, and if the girl thought what if she were to wear it. Those girls will pick on her again. And if that happens, then Ari will of course stand up for her again, but the young lady then understood that she didn't want to bother Ariana, and she would be sorry if someone stained such beauty. After which the main character claimed that it would be better for her to take it off and give it to Ariana, after which the blonde only smiled and asked if she was against it. Then the girl tied the ribbon to her ponytail and asked with a smile on her face if it suited her. Rua then just smiled and replied that it suited Ariana too. Now the young lady understands that it was the first and last time the girl wore it, and she never saw Ariana wear it again. And apparently the girl just wanted to take the ribbon from her. But the main character is now thinking about what she should do, and maybe she should buy something in the city. The girl understands that candidates for sainthood can receive money from the funds collected by the temple. And if a candidate wants to receive payment, then she must submit an application and they will allocate a portion to her. But the head of the clergy is responsible for this, no matter how many applications she submits. But she never received consent, and the young lady wonders what the matter is. At that very moment, someone bursts into the girl's room and the main character is shocked and wonders who it is. It turns out that it is one of the maids, and she claims to have arranged for the lady to receive a parcel from Mr. Shiji. The main character then asks if it was Mr. Shiji who sent it to her, but he also thinks that maybe this package is from Sven, or the maid is now responding that it is so heavy, and she has no idea what's inside, and asks why she should drag the thing that was sent for Rua. But Mr. Shiji is popular among the maids, and the girl loves to chase men, so of course, she decided to seduce him too. The young lady then understands that her maid is still just as rude, and to be honest, she wants to transfer such pain to her, but she must use this power wisely. Although now the main character is already beginning to doubt this, after which she tells the girl to wait. The maid then asks what she wants from her, and the main character claims that her words offended not only her, but also Mr. Shiji, so she waits for an apology. The woman then screams, "What is she talking about, and why should she apologize?" And the main character claims that Mr. Shiji is very devoted to His Highness Sven, and it would have offended them both if she had seduced his assistant. The woman then screams that she was not trying to humiliate Mr. Shiji, and that the girl simply wanted to hurt her. But the main character then only claims that she is so zealously showing contempt for her, that she is even ready to drag in the closest circle of His Highness. Therefore, as far as the girl asks, how narrow-minded she is, 3 is worth remembering. That she is a servant and keeps track of candidates for sainthood. So let him know his place. The maid will only get angry at this time, but he still bows and asks for forgiveness, after which the main character says that she can go and the maids agree. After this, the young lady is left alone and realizes that she just put her in her place. Then the main character opens the suitcase and realizes that it's time to see what Sven gave her. But when the girl opens the suitcase, she realizes that everything from shoes and a dress to accessories is there. A leaf also falls out of the dress. And when the main character opens it, she reads the contents. It says that as soon as the dress was sewn, it was immediately sent to Rua, and he entrusted this matter to a famous capital tailor, who usually sews clothes for candidates for sainthood. The guy also apologizes for not warning her and claims that he wanted to surprise her. He also claims that he picked out suitable jewelry, but asks if he could leave her. The girl at this time only smiles. But then they see that the sheet has a continuation, and it says that the girl probably worked without rest until now. So he applied through government agencies with a request to provide a long vacation in her name. Since the document was official, the director of the temple simply could not ignore it, and if someone were to present her with anything, then let the girl just show the official permission attached to the letter and calm down and rest. The main character then thinks that he even took care of this, and it seems that Sven can easily deal with anything, and he has such a character trait that makes him help people. The girl picks up the shoes and also looks at the jewelry and realizes that everything is so elegant, but the girl also sees that the earrings are missing, after which she goes to the closet and takes the box with her earrings. The girl opens it and realizes that she only has one earring left and that it is the thing that her mother bequeathed to her. She only had one of them left, but it seems she dropped the second one that time. When she saw a boy with bruises on his legs and healed him, however, when she said goodbye and started running. Then, looking into one of the windows and seeing my reflection, I realized that one of the earrings was missing. The girl was shocked when she realized this and almost cried. Now she thinks that it was quite a long time ago and she hopes that this boy is doing well now. But then she used her healing ability for the first time on someone other than her family. And sometime after her family had fallen into eternal sleep from an unknown disease. When the girl returned from her walk, it was already late. And now, looking at the earring in her hand, the young lady understands that all she has left from them is her mother's thing. But now, when the girl puts this earring on herself, she understands that she is no longer powerless and will make every effort to bring their plan to life. Soon, the day of the ball arrived, and due to his status, Sven arrived first at the meeting place, but specially prepared a carriage for Rua to follow him. Shiji is now looking at Mrs. Rua and asking if something is wrong. The girl then replies that no and everything is fine, but the guy claims that if she feels bad, then she should immediately let him know, because His Highness entrusted her protection to him. The young lady then says, a little puzzled, that she understood, but she herself thinks something. As for Mr. Shiji, she noticed this when they were in the library, but she feels awkward alone with him because he is unperturbed and silent. But maybe she just misses the talkative Sven. However, when the girl looks out the window, she sees that this evening the moon has disappeared into the clouds, and for some reason she has a bad feeling. A little while later, the girl gets out of the carriage and is met by the prince. The guy claims that he was waiting for her, and the young lady understands that, as expected, he is dressed in a formal suit and Sven is graceful as befits a royal person. The main character then realizes that when a guy is so gorgeous, she even feels a little awkward standing next to him. And the young man at this time replies that it's just as he expected. The girl looks especially beautiful in this dress and jewelry, and he tried to pick something to match her beautiful hair. The girl then thanks him for the gift, and she says that she really enjoys his compliments, but there is no point in flattering him because she was born a blonde, but money made her hair white. So now she asks him with a smile on her face if he thinks this is a strange transition. The guy is silent for a bit after this, but then asks if he told her about the strangeness. The guy then takes a lock of her hair in his hands and claims that those who say so are absolutely blind. After all, her hair turned white. This is proof of strength after all the pain she has been through. So let the young lady be proud of them, and she will no longer think that there is any reason for shame left. The young lady then cannot believe that he gave them such meaning, and the girl almost cries because before that her hair was only laughed at and mocked. And now the guy tells her to look, because they match his shade so well and they can even be called a couple. and also claims that if truth is judged this way, then she is also suitable for Shiji. The prince's confidant is then in shock and doesn't even know what to say about the main character. Looking at this, he only smiles, after which he tells Sven not to drive Mr. Shiji into a dead end. His Highness is then only surprised and then comes closer to the young lady, and he says that she finally laughed in front of him, after which he smiles himself. The guy extends his hand to the young lady and asks if it's time for them to go, and the main character then takes his hand and replies that yes, after which they leave, and Shiji, looking after them, only wishes them luck in the battle. When they enter the ballroom, the prince turns to Rua, and pointing to one person, he claims that this is Viscount Redmond. First, he greeted him. Well, even though this guy seems frivolous, he is actually surprisingly insightful. And the prince then claims that the rumors are not lying and the man really has a weakness for the ladies. The young lady replies that it seems so and she would like to come closer, but His Highness then tells the girl not to rush because she needs to wait for the right moment, and the young lady replies that she knows. At this time, someone else approaches these two and asks if it is really His Highness Sven, and the man asks if the guy was able to attend such a significant day for the Viscount. The guy then answers that it is so, after which he says that he and the Duke have not seen each other for a long time. The young lady looks around and understands that there are a lot of people here who are close to Sven in status, and he cannot move freely. So the girl decides that she will act. The young lady realizes that she needs to study the room carefully first, so she looks at one of the waitresses and wonders what it is. After all, this girl looks bad and is probably very tired, and she also seems to be seriously puzzled by something. So now the main character approaches her and understands that she will start with this girl. However, then someone just screams out who appeared at this ball, and is it really Rua herself? The main character is then a little surprised and realizes that it is Ariana's voice. And next to her, of course, is Mr. Galt. The girl then only smiles and says that it really is Rua, but she didn't think that they would meet in such a place. And the main character then turns to Ariana, but she understands that they haven't communicated since the girl betrayed her. And now the main character is wondering if she and Mr. Galt are really going to pretend to be so polite to her after what they did. At this time, the blonde only asks why the girl is there, and is she really there alone, since it seems that Rua is without a partner. After which, the lady with blonde hair with a smile on her face asks if her friend is alone at this big reception. She also turns to Galt and asks if he agrees. And the guy then, a little puzzled, replies that there are such. The main character then replies that she was invited because she has some connections, and of course she didn't come alone. Ariana then asks what she is talking about and claims that her friend intrigued her, but then asks where her companion is. The girl also says that Rua's hair color is so white, and if you look closely, the girl looks like an old woman. The main character then almost loses her temper and wonders whose fault it is that she became like this. But then she remembers His Highness and realizes that she needs to calm down. That's why now the young lady with a smile on her face claims that she also likes this hair even more than the previous one. Ariana then only sighs and understands that it's not interesting at all. Galt puts his hand on her shoulder and suggests that she go, since this girl had already made fun of her, and there was no need to behave according to decency or maintain a conversation. The main character then wonders if the guy is talking about decency, and if so, Mr. Galt sees it. But the blonde at this time only screams that she is not yet convinced whether Rua came with a partner, and if so, she wants to take a look. After which, the girl turns to the main character and asks if it was really that guy who gave her such a beautiful dress and jewelry. And she even put on earrings, so now the lady with the blonde hair tells her to show them closer. And then the main character thinks that she doesn't want to, and that this girl shouldn't touch them. The young lady then closes her eyes and thinks about what is going to happen now. But at that very moment, someone pulls her towards him and apologizes for leaving her alone. It turns out to be His Highness, and then he is greeted by Mrs. Torbiaz and the commander of the knights. The guy also asks if this is their first meeting. Well, he feels like he saw the respected knight commander at the initiation ceremony before. The brunette then turns to His Highness Sven in shock and asks for forgiveness for not greeting him immediately, after which he bows. And the prince replies that everything is fine, but today we can do without such formalities. Ariana then turns to His Highness Sven and claims that she is seeing him for the first time, after which she claims that her name is Ariana Torbias. The girl then asks if His Highness has come with Ruya, and the prince replies that she is right and he came with Rua. But unlike them, they are not engaged. And the blonde then asks what connects the second prince with the orphan candidate. The guy then just puts his hand on the young lady's shoulder and replies that it is true, and she is an orphan, but used to live in the Baron's house. and her parents died early, and the girl was forced to live in the temple, and he recently learned about these tragic circumstances. Since she is involved in helping orphans, hey girl, you are a candidate, you are saints. With a painful past, he asked her to work with him on a program to help the disadvantaged. With that connection, he decided to invite her there as a thank you. And now the guy turns to Rua and then asks if this is true. And the girl answers that yes and understands that it turns out that Sven has already prepared a false excuse on the basis of which they can be close. The young ladies also realize that their conversation has attracted the attention of those around them, but has not aroused suspicion. One of the women at this time claims that it seems that she has not met that white-haired girl in high society before, even though she is from the family of a baron. But before this was a big story, and the parents abandoned their daughter because of the outbreak of the disease. So they say what a pity it is. But they also claim that this girl has become a candidate for sainthood. And the young lady understands that it is still not worth ignoring the fact that His Highness is involved in helping orphans. And after all, charitable activities have a positive effect on public opinion. Therefore, the girl understands that apparently everyone took it favorably, and that was Sven's plan, because evoking sympathy was the right decision. The young lady also realizes that along the way, he has also managed to improve his reputation. And then Ariana says, "What does he mean?" But then she still falls silent, and with a smile on her face, she says, "How noble it is of His Highness." But she also claims that in the future, she would also like to get to know him better. And the prince then replies that yes, and certainly. After which the girl goes back to Galt and says that her favorite melody is playing now, so she invites her husband to dance in the very center. The girl also says goodbye to His Highness and says that they will see each other again. Galt then sees his girlfriend already running and tells her to wait. But His Highness then stops the guy by putting his hand on his shoulder, after which he turns to the head of the knights and claims that his father was an excellent ball player, and the boy's skill is no longer inferior to his, as are his heroic deeds. The guy then just gets embarrassed and cries out that His Highness doesn't have to say something like that, but the prince then asserts. However, he is somewhat naive and apparently does not have the best taste in ladies. The young man is a little surprised after this. His Highness looks at him with a smile, after which he turns to Rua and says that they can go. Ariana watches all this, just chews her nail and claims that she will not allow this to continue. A little while later, the girl is already dancing with her husband. And at this time, His Highness turns to the young lady and asks if she will give him a dance. The main character of the game does not answer that dancing is not her thing at all. And the guy then, almost crying, says that it's a pity because he would like to dance with her. And the young lady then replies that if so, then she doesn't mind. So if she hears a familiar melody, she will be glad to dance with him. The young man then asks if this is true, but tells her to remember that I promised him and he would like to dance with Rhea as soon as possible. The guy also claims that he is interested in whether this power is in his hands, because he is the second prince, and he asks the young lady what he is talking about, after which he only laughs, but then the gaze of the young lady is attracted by that same maid, and Rua understands that she recently wanted to talk to her. However, then the girl also sees a knife in the waitress's hands and is surprised by this. Rua then turns to Sven and tells him to look at what the maid has in her hands. The guy then also looks there and says that this is not good. And he also believes that this girl came for a specific person. The young lady then asks who. But when she sees the girl heading towards the Viscount, she understands that soon the melody for the dance will sound, and then there will be no people near him. His Highness at this time claims that this waitress must be stopped, and the main character agrees. The girl at this time only desperately claims that she must plunge this idiot into eternal sleep, and even if it costs her life, she must do it. But at this time, His Highness takes her hand and takes the knife away, after which he asks for forgiveness, but claims that this is not a very appropriate thing for a waitress. The girl then asks in shock why His Highness Sven did this, and the guy only insists that she not make noise. And if this is indeed an attempt, then he asks the girl if she thinks it shouldn't be made public. The prince says that her behavior is alarming and asks if the girl could explain what is happening. A little while later, they are already outside, and the girl claims that her name is Charlotte Mayle. She came from the village to earn money and ended up as a servant in Redmond's mansion. The girl heard that he was a womanizer, but she really needed the money and had to feed her family. The maid claims that she worked there for about 2 years and nothing happened during that time. But then she was going to get married and leave her job. His Highness now asks the local woman for congratulations and asks who her fiancé was. The girl then replies that it was a young man who was also her childhood friend named Alan. He also left the village and opened a bakery on the outskirts of the kingdom's capital, and they met by chance when she was in town shopping. His Highness now asks if she is talking about the bakery on the outskirts of the capital that Alan owns, after which the prince says that this is a bakery called Viola, and he has been there. The guy also claims that the freshly baked cream buns there are very tasty. Charlotte then asks in shock if His Highness knows this place, and the guy replies that when he was a child, he hid his identity and secretly went out into the city. Now he no longer indulges in such pranks, but back then he was very curious to personally learn about the life of the people. The girl then claims that if Alan found out about this, he would definitely be surprised, and the girl claims that, to be honest, they dreamed of getting married and running the shop together. But when she announced her intention, Redmond immediately invited her to his room, and at that very moment, he threw her on the bed. The main character is now in shock and says that this is terrible, and the girl claims that she was disgusted and she resisted, but the guy hit her on the cheek and forced her. He claimed that he had had his eye on the girl for a long time and told her not to resist because she was not even a virgin, after which he also claimed that this was the master's order. And he said that he would have some fun at least for the last time, and now the girl is talking about it with tears in her eyes. The main character then screams what a scoundrel this guy is, and His Highness at this time asks if the girl told anyone about this. The young lady then claims that it was painful, but she confessed honestly to Alan, and the bruises on her face and body only confirmed her words. His Highness now asks what he did, and the girl claims that she has never seen him so angry, and the guy went to demand an admission of guilt. Although the young lady stopped him saying that she did not want this to reflect on the bakery, but he simply could not close his eyes to this, and Redmond would never have listened to the accusation of a commoner and, on the contrary, it amused him. The man found a lever to influence Alan and closed his shop. The main game is not now thinking about what kind of guy this Viscount is, and she can't forgive the head of the clergy for being on the side of such a man. His Highness is now asking if that's why the girl decided to go into eternal sleep, and the young lady claims that since she had worked there before, it was not difficult to get into the reception, and she did not care about the price. But she was going to plunge Redmond into eternal sleep and was even ready to in order to say goodbye to life. The girl also claims that, fortunately, she and Alan were not yet married, so he would not have anything to do with this crime, and she thought that if she was not there, he would be able to get his business back, and his favorite bakery. So now the girl screams if only she could fix it. The main character then tells Charlotte not to cry and claims that they have one goal, and they will take care of her too, after which the young lady turns to Sven and asks what he thinks about this. The guy then claims that if her words are true, then he will also make every effort because he would be very ashamed if he left the crying girl without attention. The main character then replies that she expected him to say so, after which she thinks that Redmond should just wait, because all his sins return to him. The girl with His Highness is now returning to the hall, and the guy says that even though they have sent Charlotte home for now, but besides that, Rua is sympathetic to the core, and she even risked changing their plan because of that. The young lady then asks who else recently said something about them leaving the crying girl, and the young lady now claims that they will get close enough to Redmond to be able to get those documents. And in her free time, she will try to figure out what can be done in Charlotte's situation. His Highness then asks if she will do this in her free time. He understands that this desire still comes from a pure heart, but how could her kindness prevent their revenge? Although this is only his fear. Well, at this time, the girl hears one of the melodies start playing and claims that it is falsetto for saints and it is her favorite melody. At that moment, the prince grabs the girl by the hand and starts dragging her, which makes the main character a little surprised and asks Sven what happened. But the guy just asks with a smile on his face if she remembers that she promised him a dance, after which he says that it's time to go. After this, they dance together and everyone in the hall admires them. They say how beautiful the dance of His Highness Sven is, and the girl from the family of Baron Restato is also not bad. One of the women claims that Miss Tobias is also doing well with the Knight Commander. True, they are not so refined, and now Ariana only snorts in response to these words. Galt then turns to the girl and asks if something is wrong, and the young lady then turns to him and with a smile on her face replies that nothing is wrong. She just thought it was depressing that some bugs were trampling underfoot. The guy then looked at his bride a little puzzled because he didn't understand what she was talking about. His Highness at this time turns to Rua and says that she dances well, but asks what is wrong with her face and that he should smile at her. However, the main character then replies that she can't and that she hasn't danced for so long that she's very nervous. But when the young lady turns around, the prince sees an earring on her ear. and he understands that she is the same as the earring on his ear. After which he only smiles and understands that after all, this earring belonged to her. The guy remembers how he sat on a bench, all wounded, and understood that this was not good and how unlucky he was. After all, the young man secretly went out into the city and everything was fine until he came across a complicating situation to which a stranger clung. It turned out that he was able to fight back and disappear from sight, and the boy then understood that he was still too young for something like that. The young man also understood that if he did not return to the palace soon, everyone would start to worry. And then he remembered the words of everyone around him in the palace. The guy was an unwanted second prince, and his mother's second birth was harder than the first, which is why she lost a lot of red fluid. And even the court saint could not save her, and the mother fell into eternal sleep, leaving the young man in a situation where everyone felt disgusted by the unwanted prince. And his older brother whispered to him that his red eyes were the red liquid that he sucked from his mother, and the young man understood that this was complete nonsense. But because of the failed younger son, no one questioned the fact that the throne would go to the eldest, and power did not interest him. But who would want to be neglected just because he was an unwanted child? So the young man raised that such an attitude was disgusting, and he would prove his strength. The guy had decided this a long time ago and decided to prove to his brother how wrong he was, after which he began to go out into the city. But the thoughts that he has, nothing have not disappeared. And now the guy thinks that he is a little tired. But then someone turned to him and asked if the boy was okay. It turned out to be a young lady, and the boy then asked who she was. The girl then just looked at his wound and claimed that it must hurt. And then she claimed that she would heal him. The young lady also claimed that it was a little painful, but she could cure it. And the guy thought that this girl really had the power of a saint candidate. But why did she say that it would be painful? And maybe she wasn't used to using her ability. So the young man claimed that there was no need for it, because he would be able to return as soon as he met the servant, and it was true that there was no need to worry about such bruises. But the main character then screamed that it was still standing, and she was worried. The girl also screamed that she wanted the guy to feel better, and therefore touched his legs and claimed that she would help, after which she began to use her power. And when she healed the guy's legs, she said that everything was fine now. Well, then the girl remembered that she needed to get home faster, after which she said that it was time for her to go. And she said goodbye to the guy, and also insisted that he take care of himself. The young man then accepts that he did not know her name, but the girl had treated him so kindly before, and this was the first time that the boy thought that he was saved by some goddess. But when he looked at the floor, he realized that it was the entire earring of that girl. Therefore, taking her in his arms, he thought that maybe they would meet again. The prince understands that meeting with that girl became his support, and now no one will dare to call him an unwanted child, because he gained strength for this and he had no clues to find that girl, until he learned about the dark side of the temple and offered her to become an ally. But he constantly doubted that she was that girl. And also during their conversation, he caught himself thinking that it would be good if it were so. And this girl is the one who saved him then. And the guy had long dreamed of meeting her. Rua at this time turns to the guy and says that he looks very happy. And the prince with a smile on his face replies that it seems she is right. And then he remembers how that time the girl took his wounds for herself, and she still keeps the same kindness in her heart. But he thinks that if this kindness interferes with her revenge, then the one who gets his hands dirty instead of her will be him, because while he was searching, the young lady had received so many wounds, so this time he would become her support. And also with a sword and shield, so he thinks let the young lady stay by his side until the end, after which the two finish the dance. And the ladies in the audience immediately start clapping. They say it was just wonderful. But then someone else joins in the clapping and says it was great. And also His Highness is very talented. It turns out that this is a Viscount, and now he says, what kind of impudent person is His Highness? After all, he is in the company of such a beautiful white lily. Then he looks at the young lady's chest and asks why His Highness doesn't introduce her. The main character thinks how impudent his look is and understands that she needs to introduce herself since he started talking to us. But to be alone with him, she will have to play the role of a hunter for male attention. And the young lady wonders if this is her easiest way. The Viscount at this time says that the girl is not engaged to His Highness, and that it is precisely such beautiful flowers that possess that dangerous charm, which makes you want to pick it. The man then takes the young lady by the chin and says that he definitely wanted to know the name of the white lily. But then someone puts his hand on the Viscount's hand and asks for that. Lower your hand. The prince then claims that this girl is not really his fiancée, but she is his current partner, so he thinks that he should not interfere anymore. The young lady then turns to the prince and says that everything is fine because she will sort it out. But the young man then, a little puzzled, asks Rua what she is talking about. The girl then approaches the Viscount and, with a smile on her face, asks for forgiveness for not introducing herself right away, after which she claims that her name is Rua Restato. The man is only a little embarrassed after this. And the main character claims that she came there at the invitation of His Highness Sven, but she is afraid that she is not suitable for him as a partner, because she is just an escort and nothing more. Yes, and besides, she would prefer a closer relationship with him. The girl now understands that she would like to hurt him right now, but it is still too early. The Viscount then just smirks and asks if she is talking about a close relationship, and the young lady then whispers in his ear what he thinks, because later they can only be together. Hey! The girl asks if he would refuse a birthday present. The man then just smirks and asks how he dared to do such a thing, after which he tells the lady to come to his room after the next melody and let her consider it an invitation, after which the man kisses her hand and invites her to enjoy time alone. The young lady then leaves and realizes that she has succeeded. She also says how difficult it is to pretend to be in love, and she was worried that they were attractive enough in this regard. Well then, the main character looks at the prince's face and asks what is wrong and if something happened, because his smile is very frightening. His Highness at this time turns to Rua and tells her to first extend her hand to him. The young lady does so, but asks why, and the prince replies that he will erase the touch of this idiot. But then the prince starts rubbing her hand vigorously, and the young lady thinks that he will rub a hole in it. At this time, the guy only asks where the young lady learned this, and the main character replies that she simply imitated the girls who were near Redmond. Well, the prince claims that nevertheless, leaving him aside and being alone with Rodmund was not part of their plans. However, the young lady then asks if an affair won't play into their hands if he lets his guard down, and it's much more convenient for her to use the ability on a naked body. His Highness then wants to say something else, but still refrains, and he only claims that he is finished, and the young lady looks at her sparkling hands and then thanks him. The prince then says that she is not a princess who needs to be protected, and he understands this. But he tells the girl to be on guard when she enters Redmond's room, and he will wait nearby in case something happens. If something goes wrong and now the prince asks if they have agreed, the young lady then replies that, yes, let him trust her. After that, the disgraced one only smiles, and he says that she is far from being a saint, but a real villain. A little while later, the main character is already knocking on the Viscount's bedroom door, and he tells the girl to come in. The young lady then does so and apologizes for the intrusion, and when she looks in front of her, she realizes that this is definitely Redmond's bedroom. After which, the girl sees a man sitting on the bed and thinks that probably the documents certifying the agreement are in another room. So first she needs to find out for sure. The man at this point turns to the young lady and states that he knew she would be intrigued by her, after which he drinks the wine and then pours another glass asking how about a glass of wine. Well, the main character asks for forgiveness and claims that she doesn't drink, and the guy then asks if that's true, after which he pulls the young lady by the hand and says that if so, they won't beat around the bush, and it's worth clarifying the situation before having fun. So the man asks what her real goal is, and the main character is then shocked and wonders if he really understood everything. Shiji walks around the estate and realizes that just in case, he decided to conduct reconnaissance around the mansion, but did not notice anything unusual. And he wonders if His Highness Sven and Mrs. Rua are doing well. The guy realizes that he needs to act immediately if something goes wrong, but then he sees someone else. And he wonders if Mrs. Torbias is really there. But the guy then doesn't understand who is next to her, because of the robe he can't see. But judging by the height, it's not the commander. The man then realizes that Mrs. Torbias has slipped away from the reception to secretly meet this man, but the place they are in must be a warehouse, and the guy is now wondering what they are doing there. But when he understands what all this can lead to, it is already too late, because when he looks back, he understands that he missed them. After which, Shiji starts running and realizes that if his thought is correct, then there will be trouble, and then he must immediately inform His Highness and Lady Rue about it. The young lady at this time asks the Viscount what he means, but the man then tells her not to pretend and asks if she wants wealth, status, or if she wants to gain his trust for the sake of patronage. The girl only sighs after this and understands that he still hasn't figured out their plan, so she needs to answer something. Well, now the young lady also understands that the Viscount is holding her by the wrist, and the man at this time screams for her to respond quickly. And the young lady understands that his true character has been revealed, but to use his ability, it is necessary to touch a bare area of the body, and to be more precise, it is necessary to touch it with the palm of the hand. The girl understands that it is necessary to weaken his vigilance and remove the stiffness from his wrist. So now she, with a smile on her face, asserts that this is what she wants. This is an emotional lift from the Viscount. The man then only asks if she wants an emotional lift, and the girl claims that being a candidate for sainthood, she knows how tiring it is to exist in a cramped temple, and it is like a numbness from within. Therefore, the girl claims that she does not feel enough lift, but with the Viscount. She can enjoy this without any consequences, and her Naledi asks if this is true. The man then just starts laughing and screaming, what kind of defect is this, and how can it be that he came across a dissolute saint? Because it's amazing. The man cries out that there is nothing strange in the fact that a woman like Charlotte did not want to be had. But that is exactly the kind of woman he wanted. The young lady then asks if he is talking about Charlotte, and the man claims that she is a former servant and that she was faithful to her fiancé, and that is why she resisted. And also she only shut up after 5 or 6 hits, and her body was not bad. But then her fiancé showed up, and he caused so much trouble. So now the Viscount says what a damn commoner he is, and the main character understands that he is actually terrible. And her revenge will be merciless, so now the young lady claims that she is not like Charlotte, after which the Viscount lets go of her hands and begins to rip her dress, after which he asks if the girl will entertain him. The main character then puts her hand on his shoulders and replies that of course they will have fun together. However, when the young lady uses her power, the Viscount begins to feel a terrible itch start to appear on his back, and he immediately starts scratching them, screaming at how it itches. The main character then turns to the Viscount and says that the poison that was mixed into the wine has begun to act, and now he only feels itching. But gradually his condition will only worsen, and she will not give him the available antidote, so after a few minutes he will fall into eternal sleep. The man then goes into shock, and the main character understands that this is all a bluff, however, and it really does look like a type of skin disease that she healed in the past. A person is attacked by an unbearable itch, of course. It is not life-threatening, and especially if you think about it calmly. She didn't have the opportunity to add poison, but apparently the itching was too strong, and the man couldn't think about it. The Viscount is now screaming for her to stop and give him the antidote quickly. But the young lady then says that he has documentation about the trade of goods that he conducts with the West, and the man is then shocked and thinks how this girl found out. Well, the young lady just tells him to tell where this documentation is, Novik. He then screams that he won't tell, and the young lady then says that nothing can be done. And she didn't want to take his life, but in this case, she will have to. The man then screams for her to wait and talks about the next room in the office. And the young lady asks where exactly in the office these documents are located, and the man replies that they are on the table in a drawer under lock and key, and the key is behind the painting. After which, the man screams again that his whole body is itching and tells the girl to give him an antidote. And the young lady realizes that she doesn't have it, but then she takes a paper out of her pocket and says that it's not all over yet, but she needs a stamp and a signature there. After which, the young lady hands it over to the Viscount's trembling hands. But when a man reads what is written there, he is shocked and asks what kind of absurd content this is. The young lady then claims that it is a bill for damages to Charlotte Mail, the girl he defamed, and the girl then realizes that this document was made up by Sven on the spot. The guy then asked if he should add another 0. But you can add 2 or 3. Well, the man now screams, what kind of stupidity is this, and is this really compensation for just a former maid? And looking at the amount, he cries out that it is still huge. The young lady then claims that he also put excessive pressure on her fiancé's shop, and this also applies to compensation for damages. And that's not all she's heard. The girl claims that she investigated and found out that there were many victims like her, and some of them got pregnant and were thrown out on the street. And now the main character claims that if possible, then she would like to allocate alimony for the upbringing of these children. And what Charlotte said, considering this part, is still a little. So now the young lady says that one's life should not be measured by wealth and asks what he thinks. The Viscount then only swears, and the young lady tells him to quickly put the seal and signature, after which the man does it anyway, and when he puts the seal, he hands her the document, and asks the girl if this is what she wanted. The main character then looks over the document and answers that, undoubtedly, and the man then cries out that if she is satisfied, then let him give her the antidote. But the main character then says that, alas, he does not exist. And the man then looks at her in shock, and the young lady claims that he will slowly fall into eternal sleep, regretting what he did, after which she leaves the room and says goodbye to Viscount Redmond, and also claims that the night with him was very unpleasant. But the man then cries out that everything can't be like this, and even though the girl doesn't leave, his body still itches a lot, and he cries out that he doesn't want to fall into eternal sleep. Well, then he does lose consciousness. And the young lady then thinks that maybe she scared him too much. And apparently fear overcame the itch all over his body, because the guy fainted from this, so what a pathetic man he is. But the young lady understands that in any case, everything is settled with Charlotte, and all that remains is to get the documents about the deal with the West. His Highness meets the girl at the exit and says that she did a good job, and also states that he is glad that she is okay. The young lady then says that Sven has arrived, and the guy replies that of course, and it looks like things are going well, but then he is shocked and tells her to wait and asks what happened to her dress. After which, he gives her his cape and tells her to put it on and cover the front properly. After which, he says that this is Redmond's doing. And this man is simply terrible. So His Highness asks how he can deal with him. And the young lady then thinks what he is talking about and claims that she has already dealt with him. After which, he says that they should quickly pick up the documents since they are in the next room. His Highness then turns to the young lady and states that he wants her to take better care of herself. But then the young lady then says that that was indecent. After which he apologizes, and the prince only becomes embarrassed, and then claims that he didn't mean it that way. After which he also turns to the young lady and states that he has seen to it that everything becomes clear from now on. And the main character, watching him leave, thinks, what does it mean to be clear, and the whole guy is so strange. After that, they go into that very room, and the young lady says that the key is behind the painting and the documents are in the drawer of the desk. Then they take the picture, and there really is a key, after which they open the chest of drawers and keep the documents. The prince then claims that this time he was not the main actor in the play, and thanks to her, the goal was achieved. After which His Highness folds the paper and puts it in his pocket, and the young lady then says that they need to leave quickly. But at that very moment, Shiji bursts into the room and addresses His Highness. He cries out that he knew he was still there, and the prince then asks Shiji if it was him, and then asks why the guy is so disheveled. His Highness's confidant then asks for forgiveness, but claims that he has an urgent report. Torbius's secret meeting with someone, and it was in front of the warehouse. The main character then wonders if it was Ariana, and the guy then claims that this is just his assumption. However, perhaps this man is from the Yuan clan, and it looks like he has been hiding all this time. And also speaking about the magical beasts that will be brought to their country, if they are sent to Redmond's warehouse, things are bad now, and at the same moment they hear piercing screams. The main character then asks what happened, and Shiji only gets angry and claims that it seems like the worst assumption turned out to be true. After which His Highness and the main character go out onto the terrace and see people running away in horror. And in the middle of the room there appears a large monster. The main character now screams that this must be Ariana's doing, and the girl thinks what the purpose of all this was. After which the young lady sees Ariana herself, who is watching all this horror with a smile on her face. The main character understands that allowing magical beasts to attack the estate was originally in the plans of the head of the clergy, because by healing all the wounds they received, they will be able to win the faith of these people. And even if the aristocrats swore an oath of confidence to the royal family, it is very likely that the temple's too great authority will cause fears, and there will also be a possibility that their plan will be revealed. Ariana understands that it is necessary to choose in advance the estate that will be attacked, and of course, their plan did not include an attack on the house of Viscount Redmond. But now the girl with a smile on her face says that today only aristocrats have gathered, and that it would be a sin not to take advantage of such a chance. But since the magical creatures had been hidden right in the warehouse for centuries, it was still a very rash decision, and she would have to apologize to the Viscount. But then the girl with a smile on her face thinks that let her cute little animal attack. But she also says that he should just not get excited and try not to put them into eternal sleep, because when she returns to the temple, I and all of them will have to heal. But this is only if she has a desire. Well then, the young lady tells him to do all this except for the white-haired girl. The blonde also remembers how she had conversations with the guy who knows how to control this monster and asked if they had agreed, and also if he could order the animal to be cruel only to the white-haired girl. That's why now she smiles and thinks how great it is, after which she realizes that Rua is pathetic and unhappy, but at the same time full of self-importance. If she were useful and remained her obedient toy, the girl would allow her to live and continue the game. But now the blonde screams for the monster to tear this idiot into small pieces. Galt at this time only screams for everyone to remain calm and not to panic, and also to run. He also shouted that the main entrance was blocked and that they should quickly evacuate through the back door. However, when the monster began to roar, the aristocrats were simply shocked and began to run around in panic. And the guy understood that they were consumed by panic, so the evacuation was not progressing. but if he had a ball, he could fight the beast. However, Ares said that the sword was not suitable for the reception and he should have insisted on his own. So the guy thinks that he should quickly find Ares, who disappeared during all this. And now the young man hopes that she is safe. The main character at this time goes down the stairs, but looking at all this commotion, she screams that there will be so many victims, and all this is the work of Ariana. His Highness then states that she did it without hesitation. After which the prince turns to Shiji, and the boy then tells his Highness that he prepared everything and then hands him the sword. The prince then claims that the sword is his favorite and he left it in the carriage. And Shiji then claims that he was just heading to his Highness and decided to take it just in case. And the prince then says that as he thought, an excellent subordinate will be able to help them out in their difficult moment. Well, there is no main game. Then he cries out whether it is true that he will fight with this creature because it is dangerous. But the prince then claims that he is quite good at this, so that he is not inferior even to the commander of the knightly order. Sven also turns to his subordinate and asks if he also brought a weapon, and the guy replies that of course. After which his Highness tells the guy to find a person from the Wan clan, because if he controls the magical beast, he must be somewhere on the estate's territory. And when the guy finds him, let him arrest him, and then Cg tells his Highness that he will do as he orders. The man then turns to Rua and tells her to take these documents and kill. The girl then takes the paper, but claims that she cannot escape alone. And the guy then says that she is smart enough to understand that this is the best solution. And the girl answers that yes, but when she wants to say something, who understands that in such a fight she will undoubtedly only be a hindrance. But since Ariana is on the side of the person from the Yuan clan, she is sure that this girl will give the order to attack her. And this girl will definitely do it. And the main character understands that she probably can't use it against her. But the potential of her power is worth checking. His Highness at this time understands that Cg will take on a person from the Wen clan, and Rua will escape danger. But when he looks back at the monster, he thinks how he can defeat this monster. The guy understands that the commander is helping people escape, but the evacuation is not going well. And it's hard to swing a sword when there are so many people around. And the prince then thinks that first he needs to take the beast to an open space away from people. But the main character at this time tells Sven to wait because she has a plan. Then, a little shocked, he cries out that Rue needs to run away from there quickly. However, the main character then confidently answers that she will not run away and asks Sven to listen to her. After which the young lady tells her plan, but His Highness in shock asks what she is saying and whether she is in her right mind. After all, how can he allow her to do something dangerous? However, the young lady then puts her finger to the young man's lips and says that if she were in her right mind, she would not become anyone's friend here. And the young man then takes her hand and claims that the girl always exceeds his expectations, after which he says, okay, and he understands. After which he suggests following her plan again, and the main character then thanks Sven for accepting her. They both claim that he just wants to play the main role in their plan as soon as possible. Galt at this time is just heading down the corridor and understands that during the entire evacuation, Ari never showed up. It's good if she already managed to escape. At this moment, one of the women falls, tripping over her dress, and the monster, seeing her, remembers the blonde's words that he needs to attack the lady with white hair. So the monster now begins to growl with all his might and prepares to attack the woman. Galt then tries to remove her and tells her to be careful. But after this, the young lady only claims that the monster needs to attack not this woman, but her. After which the monster immediately directs his gaze to the young lady, and Galt then screams for her to be careful and run. The young lady then realizes that, as expected, this monster reacted to the white hair, and the Yuan clan man can control magical creatures. But they cannot recognize people, and if Ariana orders the beast to attack her, she will tell him the color of her hair, and the young lady thought so, because she understands a little about the course of her thoughts, because they are former friends. His Highness at this time says that Rua helped him out by taking the monster aside, after which he delivers one precise blow to the monster's neck, causing it to scream. And the young lady then also touches this monster and begins to use her ability, from which the monster only whines, after which he falls to the floor, and the main character, looking at her hand, understands that it worked. And the transfer of the intoxication symptom also worked on the beast. So this time she transferred the hangover. His Highness at this time turns to Rua and says that everything worked out because she became bait, and he killed this monster. And more precisely, he pretended to be getting ready. In the end, it was she who pacified this monster. After which, the guy turns to the young lady and says that everything is as planned, and the main character replies that it is all thanks to the fact that he trusted her. At this time, everyone in the hall begins to clap and claim that His Highness Sven has pacified the beast, and as expected from His Highness, he did it, and how bravely the girl acted, becoming bait. Galt is watching all this at this time and realizes that this girl looks like Miss Restato. At this time, Ariana is just angry and understands that she still failed to do it, and the girl thinks how useless these monsters are, after which she realizes that she needs to use Plan B. The guy who was controlling the monster at that time is in shock, looks and thinks why it is not moving and whether the beast has really suffered the situation, after which he understands that he needs to leave quickly. But at that very moment, someone puts a sword to his neck and claims that he doesn't think the guy can do it. It turns out to be Sir Shiji, and he claims that, on the orders of His Highness, he will not let this guy escape, after which he advises him to confess on whose orders he acted. While everyone in the hall is clapping, one of the guys comes into the hall and claims that the hair color is different. However, he then asks if it is Mrs. Rua, during the attack of the magical creature. What happened at the ball at Redmond? There were no serious consequences, only a few people received minor bruises, so the matter was not made public. The Yuan clan man who controlled the beast was caught, and the fact that Redmond was one of the culprits in the attack of the magical creatures was revealed. It was made public before the aristocracy in the hall, and was supported by documentary evidence. The Viscount was arrested on the spot. Moreover, if the fact of the existence of a behind-the-scenes leader is revealed, then the crime of the head of the clergy and his associates will also not be able to be hushed up forever. Now the young lady is sitting at the table and saying that the carriage in which Redmond and the man from the Yuan clan were being carried was attacked by robbers, and the man was plunged into eternal sleep. And Redmond, although he managed to escape, lost his mind. At the moment, a man in prison is no different from a mentally disabled person who is not even able to string a few words together. The young lady realizes that her threats were not the turning point and her ability was just a threat. But this time, he really believed that he would be put into eternal sleep and went crazy. So now the main character thinks about the escaped enemy and understands that the head of the clergy probably hired them. The prince then replies that he believes this to be true, but he is alarmed that everything happened too quickly. And perhaps Miss Toberaz had prepared the mercenaries in advance as insurance in case she failed. The young lady then thinks that Ariana is still as devious as ever, and Shiji claims that he should have accompanied the carriage instead of leaving her as a knight, and that it was unwise of him, after which the guy bows and asks for forgiveness, but His Highness then replies that no, and they should have avoided participating in this matter, even if it meant allowing the knights to take all the laurels for themselves. But there is still one person from the Yuan clan, and the probability that he will appear at some meeting is still not zero, and it was his decision to exclude Shiji from the mission. So the guy doesn't have to worry because he did everything right. Shiji then replies that it is fine, but says that His Highness does not have to say such things. Meanwhile, the prince claims that the losses from magical creatures should disappear for a while, since they have thwarted one of the enemy's plans. The young lady claims that this is logical, but thinks that as for Charlotte, she received the money from the confiscation of Redmond's property. As planned, they also found out that Redmond's wife and son were not involved in his plans, and they moved to the woman's family estate so they did not have to live in poverty. And the young lady thinks that at least there is something good in this and then smiles, but then asks what their next enemy is. And the young lady asks if they will deal with the next aristocrat who cooperates with the head of the clergy. The prince then replies that he would like to, but first his father gave Rua an invitation, and he wants him to bring the girl to the audience. The main character then understands that this thing is His Majesty the King, and now she is shocked and asks if this is really so. Ariana at this time is just angry in her room and beating her pillow, screaming, "What a bummer." The girl understands that the attack of the magical beasts failed, and even though the mercenaries who attacked the carriage did a good job, His Holiness reprimanded her and insisted that she not act willfully and sit quietly for a while. So now the girl is wondering if he is angry with her. But then she screams that she did nothing wrong and it is all Rua's fault. So now she asks what kind of nonsense this is. The girl still didn't expect that Rua would act so bravely and voluntarily become bait for the beast. But everyone applauded and fussed over her like a discarded bag. So now the blonde is very angry and understands that this girl is just a defective holy orphan, and she thinks how much she hates her. But then she lies down on the bed and thinks that she will let Galt spoil her. Well, the girl also understands that there is something in that. The way he talked to her after the ball, it was as if he was in the clouds. And now the girl screams that she is so angry that it is as if she is about to fall into eternal sleep. At this time, the maid enters the girl's room and asks for forgiveness. but claims that she has messages from the head of the clergy. The blonde then jumps out of bed and asks what she is talking about, and she wonders if this man has finally forgiven her. The maid then claims that it is about the annual celebration that will take place in the coming days, and the young lady realizes that she remembers something similar. After all, they gather candidates for sainthood there, and perhaps she has another chance, which is why the girl is asking now. Could the maid clarify something? Sven's older brother is sitting at his desk at this time. Well, then he looks at one of the papers and wonders if this is really a report about the incident at Viscount Redmond's estate. That Sven played a key role in this, so now his older brother just winces and says that this guy is at it again. At this point, someone enters the room and apologizes for interrupting Mr. Sarid's work. The guy then turns to Diana and asks what happened, and the woman then says that the matter is this. However, when she sees the guy's face, she screams at him to stop wincing like that. After all, with such a face, he will scare away all his subjects. So let him smile a little. And then the woman asks why he shouldn't follow the example of his younger brother. However, the guy then asks if she really claims that he is more suitable to be the next ruler. Well, the lady with green hair then claims that no one says such things and insists that he immediately stop being so gloomy. After all, she is his fiancée. And after that, the guy just turns away and falls silent. And then Diana tells him to listen to something else and claims that tomorrow a girl will appear who will be a candidate for sainthood, and she will sort out everything with that incident together with his brother. Sarid then frowned and said that he was looking forward to the meeting. With such a famous person, and Diana at this time replies that however he should be eager to meet her. It was Lewis. The guy then says that he thinks Mrs. Rua is an important person to him. The head priest at this time is throwing papers around in his office and screaming that this Ariana is a capricious girl. She does whatever she wants, and he asks if she's going to derail his carefully laid plans. But then one of the servants turns to His Holiness and asks him to calm down, because Ariana has already dealt with this problem by sending mercenaries. And the high priest then says that she hired mercenaries for money. And another priest then claims that soon the annual ceremony will take place, and henceforth the girl will obediently follow all his instructions. The man then replies that if this is how it will be, then everything is fine, and for this he must put forward a candidacy for this naughty girl. The man with red hair then tells His Holiness that everything is correct. And the man then thinks that, however, he could not have imagined that His Highness Sven and Rua would tame the magical beast. And it is very likely that the young man found out about his plan, and Rua most likely happened to be nearby by chance. However, be that as it may, Redmond has become useless, and he will no longer use magical beasts. So now the priest thinks that no matter how much he would like otherwise, he will have to neglect some details of the plan in order to complete it faster. At this time, someone enters the office and asks for forgiveness, after which he asks if the head of the clergy is there. It turns out to be Galt, and now the priest turns to the commander and then asks what made him come to him. The guy then states that, in general, he would like to ask him a few questions regarding a certain candidate for sainthood. But the man then interrupts the guy and asks if it is urgent, after which the young man replies that it is not and that nothing is urgent. But the priest then sends him away and asks for forgiveness, but claims that he has business and suggests discussing it another day, after which he says goodbye. Galt, after seeing the closed doors in front of him, understands that there is nothing he can do if he is busy. The guy then realizes that he wanted to know more about Restato, and he wonders if the girl is really such a terrible person as Ariana says. After all, at that moment she acted with dignity and even beauty. Well, and then the young man begins to shake his head and understands that he cannot be trusted to think about such things. Well, when he passes by one of the windows, he looks into it and again thinks about Lady Restato. The main character at this time walks down the corridor and realizes that she cannot believe that the day of the audience has arrived. And the girl understands that His Majesty simply wants to reward her for her help in the incident at Redmond's estate, and Sven said that everything would be exactly like that. He also gave her a dress for the reception again, and the young lady is now wondering how this could not be good news. But the girl also thinks that this feeling of being looked at from everywhere is a little stressful for her. The maid is asked at this time if this is the same Rua Restato who fought the magical beast. And she defeated such a terrible beast. So it's amazing, and the girls also say that this dress suits her very well. The men also talk among themselves, and one of them claims that Duchess Peridot said that this girl saved her, and his interlocutor claims that the feat of the candidate and His Highness Sven has become a subject of discussion at many receptions. The young lady then thinks that these rumors are not so bad, but she wonders if the other candidates feel uncomfortable because of the increased interest in her person. She will become the Rose Princess at the ceremony in honor of the goddess Rush this year. And the main character then understands that this is true. And soon everything will consist of a ceremony in honor of the goddess Rush. Rush's birthday, and the main character at the event should be the current saint, however. At the moment, her place is empty. Therefore, two of the best candidates for sainthood are chosen, one from the temple and one from the royal family. Two girls who do their job well before the people are called the Princesses of the Rod of the Year. The young lady understands that this title was named so because of Rush's love for roses, and therefore there is a garden with them in the temple garden, which serves as a place for the candidates to rest. And the people also eagerly await this sacred holiday, because the temple is one of the governing bodies of the country. Yes. And apart from the Rose Princesses, the candidates for sainthood almost always play a background role. And as for the main character, she was something like a servant every year. While Ariana has been nominated by the temple for the role of Rose Princess for 2 years in a row, and it looks like it will be the same this year. The royal family has nominated children of high status, so this year the girl understands that she will again be behind the scenes. And it is unlikely that Sven will remember her name unless it concerns revenge. Well, then the girl goes into the garden and realizes that Sven told her that the path to the place of audience lies through this garden. However, at the same moment, the maid who is at the window pours water from the bucket, right at the main character. But when you turn around, the maid is already running away. The young lady notices only part of her hair and thinks if it is a girl, after which she believes that this is not an accident, but wonders if this is the work of Ariana. However, the main character understands that it is not her after all, because a girl would not engage in such petty hooliganism, and moreover, this thing is the royal court. But then the main character realizes that it will take time to dry out. So she thinks about what to do. At this time, Sven's older brother notices her and says that she is probably a candidate for sainthood of Rua Restado. But then the guy just looks at her angrily and asks what the girl is doing in such an ugly state in the royal palace. The young lady then realizes that His Highness Sarid Zito Crown, he is the crown prince, and also Sven's brother, and she heard that both brothers have outstanding abilities. But now the girl thinks about how cold her older brother's look is, and he values good manners very much, and is also strict with himself and others. So it's not for nothing that he is called the Prince of Ice and Snow. And also, maybe they look similar to Sven, but otherwise they are very different, and now the prince asks what happened and also claims that he is listening. After which he asks why she is standing there like that and let her immediately name the reason why she is dirtying the royal garden. The main character then bows and asks for forgiveness for being there in such an unsightly form, after which she says that this is because, but still thinks whether she can tell the truth that someone poured it on her. But then the girl understands that it is impossible, because one careless fact will become the reason for unfriendly assumptions, and her thoughtless statements can drag down Sven. So now the young lady says that she apologizes for having spilled water on herself due to her carelessness and claims that she will change her dress right away. But the prince then says that this does not suit him and the girl shirks responsibility. And the guy then asks why his brother is spending time with her, because he should find out before the girl meets her father, after which he tells her to come over. But at that very moment, someone shouts Sarid's name and it turns out to be his wife. The girl claims that she watched what was happening and the way he approached the girl in wet and cold clothes was completely rude. The guy then turns to Diana and tries to justify himself. But the girl screams that there is no need to justify himself, because first of all, he should have taken care of her, because what if she catches a cold? And he, as a future king, must learn to think about his actions. The main character, watching all this, understands that the terrible Prince Sarid has just... He began to look like a naughty puppy, and the girl wonders who this energetic little girl is. The girl at this time apologizes for such treatment and then claims that her name is Diana Peridot, and she is the bride of Prince Sarid. The young lady then realizes that she has heard of such a family name and this is a ducal house, and this lady is the future queen. So now the main character asks for forgiveness with a terrible appearance and claims that she is Rua from the Restado house. The lady with green hair then replies that she knows and was just about to thank the girl, but the young lady then asks what she should thank her for. However, Diana then says that she needs to change her clothes first, and she thinks that there is no time to return to the temple, so she will take her to her room. Sarid then, in shock, tells Diana to wait, because inviting a candidate for sainthood whom she barely knows is too much. However, the girl then replies that everything is fine, and she knows that Rua helped Sven in the recent incident and asks to notice that she is doing a good deed. So she asks the guy not to interfere if he himself is not able to help. Sarid then only falls silent, and the main character then thinks that His Highness Sarid is under the thumb of his bride, and it is surprising how the girl is not shy with him. And perhaps this means that they really have a good relationship. Diana at this time turns to the young lady and invites her to go. A little while later, the main character is already changing into one of the dresses, and the lady with green hair says that it suits her very well. The girl claims that she wore this dress a long time ago, but it fits Lady Rua just right. The main character then tells Lady Diana that she still cannot accept him. However, the girl with green hair then asks if she really likes the old dress better, and the main characters answer that it is not about that. She understands that the dress given by Sven is really beautiful, but she ruins his gift for the second time, and now the girl is a little puzzled, thinking how this could happen. Diana at this time only smiles and says that the dress must have been a gift from Sven. And the main character then thinks how she guessed and answers that yes. The lady with green hair then claims that she heard that they were dancing and that the two are actually quite close. Diana also claims that His Highness Sven is completely uncharacteristic of caring for a specific person, and that they help orphans together. The main character then remembers that this was their excuse at the ball, and that it became the basis of their partnership. So now the young lady claims that Mrs. Diana knows about this even though she was not at the ball, and the girl replies that of course she is a highly informed person in high society, and there is nothing that she does not know about their aristocracy. Moreover, the young lady claims that her mother and that woman with white hair, whom the girl saved then, were at that ball. The main character then asks in shock if it was really her mother. Alibi with green hair at this time only grabs her hands and claims that her mother is very grateful to her, because she is her savior. And now Diana claims that she also thanks her from the bottom of her heart. The young lady then claims that she was protected by the Knight Commander Galt, and the beast was pacified by His Highness Sven. So she did nothing. The lady with green hair then tells the girl not to be modest, because she heard about her brave deed, and she would like to talk to her some more. But she thinks that it is time for them to go to the audience, because they are already expected. The main character then asks who is waiting, and Diana replies that she will see them soon. So now she offers Lady Rua to have tea next time, and the main character agrees. A little while later, the girl enters the hall, where there are knights and servants. The Emperor is also there, and he addresses Rua Restato and states that her contribution was significant. So for helping to eliminate the damage from the demonic beasts, as well as for helping to find the culprits, he wants to express his gratitude to her. The main character then says that she is flattered by his words, and now the girl understands that, as expected, His Majesty is an influential person and each of his words has its price. At this time, the man only tells the girl to accept any reward and think about it, and also to say what she would like. The young lady then thinks about what she would like from His Majesty. And after some thought, she states her wish. The girl claims that she would like to obtain the rights to own Baron Restato's mansion. The Emperor is a little surprised after this, and the young lady understands that the noble mansion, the true owner of which has fallen into eternal sleep due to the lack of heirs as Togo and the law demanded, has become the property of the state for the next 10 years. After this period, it belongs to demolition, and this year will be exactly the 10th year. Because of its dark past, as the girl heard, no one lived there. And that day she was unable to visit the temple to find out exactly what happened. But she couldn't even visit the graves because she didn't receive permission from the head priest. The Emperor now says that this is how it is. And the girl is the daughter of the baron who owned the estate, and the man then asks if she thinks that the price of this mansion is so high. The main character then replies that he is valuable to her personally, and this is about where she spent time with her family. So if there is a chance, she would like to return him. The young lady understands that this has nothing to do with revenge and is just a small dream that she gave up on long ago. The Emperor at this time asserts that he understands and sees no reason for refusal, after which the main character is surprised and thanks him. The man then says that he was sure that her request would be connected with Sven's engagement. The young lady then asks if he is talking about his engagement to His Highness Sven, and wonders if His Majesty would really joke. But he said it with such a serious face, and the man at this time claims that his son is very vigilant thanks to his upbringing, and he has been like this since childhood. But despite this, every time he mentions Lady Rua, he looks very casual, and perhaps the queen is worried about this. The main character then apologizes for the mistrust, but claims that it would sound too arrogant coming from a person of her status, and that she is now a nobody, and nothing more than one of many candidates for sainthood. Therefore, she is not suitable for engagement with His Highness. However, the young lady thinks, what is it after all? She only said the obvious, but then the girl does not understand why her chest aches so much. The emperor at this time claims that if only she were not a candidate but a saint, she could become his ideal match. However, the young lady claims that for 10 years this title has not belonged to anyone, and it was her pipe dream. The young lady understands that she is no longer interested in the place of the saint, and she will try to prevent Ariana from taking it. But she herself does not deserve this position, and her main goal now is revenge. And the emperor then says that their conversation is over and the main characters do not agree. After which she heads for the exit and realizes that she is so tense that she is tired. And the girl is even glad that one of her requests will be fulfilled, but now she needs to rest. Because even though she had come all the way to the royal palace, perhaps she should return to the library. However, at that very moment, someone pushes the young lady down the stairs, after which the girl immediately runs away, and the main character thinks that it can't be him. And is it really the girl who poured water on her? Well, then the young lady understands that she won't be able to keep her balance and will fall, after which he immediately begins to fall down the stairs and closes his eyes, expecting the worst. Well, then Sven grabs her and greets her, after which he claims that he never thought of that she would fall from the sky and it was good that the girl's hair caught his attention. The young lady then thanks the prince for saving her, but realizes that he had mentioned in the morning that he would be busy with formal affairs in the area, but apparently finally returned. The guy also asks if she hit anything. The girl replies that no, and she avoided it thanks to him, and so she is a little puzzled and asks if he can let her go already. But His Highness then asks if she simply stumbled, because if so, then he is worried that she might fall again. The girl then doesn't even know what to answer, and the prince wonders if he can also ask why she took off the dress that he gave her. And the main game doesn't answer that she accidentally got it dirty. But the prince then turns to Rua and claims that he is sensitive to lies from people around him, so such an answer will not work with him. The main character then looks at the prince, and she wonders why there is such a dark aura surrounding him. And she doesn't want him to be too worried. But then the girl apologizes and claims that someone actually poured water on her and her dress got dirty. And just now someone pushed her too, so maybe it was the same person who did it, and that's what she thinks. His Highness then asks if the girl remembers what the man looked like, and the young lady apologizes, but claims that she does not know for sure, after which the prince replies that he understands. And perhaps someone unrelated to Lady Torbias has a grudge, so he's thinking of assigning Shiji to her as a guard. And the main character is then surprised and cries out that it is not necessary to take such measures. After all, not so long ago, this was almost an everyday occurrence for her. After these words, Sven only looks sadly at the young lady and says that she has become too accustomed to pain. The guy claims that difficult moments can't always be avoided, but she can talk to him about them. The young lady then asks Sven what he is talking about, but at that moment, someone approaches them. And when he sees the girl, he even drops the apples and then asks, "Is it true, Mrs. Rua?" The main character then looks at the guy and asks if he is really Louise. But at that very moment, the young man jumps on her with hugs. And he also cries out that he has been waiting for this meeting for so long. His Highness just looks at all this in shock. And Louis, with tears in his eyes, says that the color of Mrs. Rua's hair has changed. But this does not change the fact that she has become even more beautiful. And he thanks the Lord God that they met for the second time in this world. The girl then, a little puzzled, says that she is also glad to meet him again, but asks if he could loosen his grip. His Highness then pulls the guy away and says that this is for sure, after which he asks if he will let the girl go already. After which he asks Rua, who is this ill-mannered, bespectacled guy Apple, because he looks like a hired worker. The main character then thinks why the prince called him that, and Louis then bows and cries out that he asks His Highness for forgiveness and unknowingly behaved very disrespectfully towards him. But the prince then asks if he thinks that this is impermissible and fraught with punishment for insulting a member of the royal family. After this, the young man only becomes frightened and asks for mercy. Well, the main character then turns to Sven and tells him not to make threats out of nowhere. The girl then claims that it was Louis and that he really was a hired hand on their estate, and that he also took care of her during her childhood and was just like an older brother. Louis Liston comes from a small country in the east, where he was the first son and heir to the best store in the country. However, he himself did not show any ability for trading, and as a result, he ran away from his father, who forced him to continue this business and began to look for work in the kingdom of Zito. The boy was lucky enough to find his place in the Resto estate, and the young lady's mother is a very hardworking person, so there were always very few servants in their house. And Louis became a new man for the first time in a long time. His father immediately liked him because he was a conscientious worker and also made excellent baked goods. And the guy looked after her from time to time. Therefore now, looking at the young man, the girl understands that he has not changed at all, even though 10 years have already passed. And it's such nostalgia that the main character now claims that she was worried about what happened to him after the employer disappeared. And the young man replies that, to be honest, immediately after this unfortunate incident, his father contacted him when he came to the city on business and returned him to his homeland. However, it was later discovered that his third younger sister had much greater trading abilities. Because of this, she was recognized as the heir and he received complete freedom. The main character now understands that this is true, because Lewis has 5 younger sisters. The guy then claims that about 6 months ago, he came to this country again and began to serve Lady Diana from the Peridot family. The prince then says that's it, like this guy is working for his brother's fiancé. Lewis replies that's true, and the main character then says that, be that as it may, she is glad that everything is fine with him. And then the guy screams that he should have said this, because after returning home, he was the only one who could helplessly worry about her. But now they have met again, and he needs to tell her something. After which, the guy asks her to listen carefully to what he is going to tell her. The guy claims that the sudden immersion into eternal sleep of the master, the mistress, and the youngest son of Restato. He always doubted whether this was some person's plan. The young lady then, in shock, asks if he is talking about the plan and claims that they are sick. And the guy claims that the cause of their death was a previously unknown disease, but it was probably a crime organized by someone. The young lady is then shocked to think about this, but then asks on what basis he is making such a statement. The guy is then about to answer, but at the same time a couple of maids scream out, "What is this? And who scattered the apples in such a place, because you can't even walk there?" Lewis then apologizes and claims that it was him, after which he says that Mrs. Diana asked him to make an apple pie. The main character then turns to the guy and says that she can help. However, he flatly refuses and says that it is not necessary, after which he asks to allow him to continue his story later. The young lady then tries to object, but the prince then says that it is better to leave now, and he is sure that the girl is confused, but it is best to take a break now to calm down and think everything over. Rua then realizes that Lewis would not say something like that based only on empty assumptions, and he has some reason to suspect someone. So the girl wonders if her relatives were really plunged into eternal sleep not by an illness but by some person. That's why now the main character is wondering who could possibly need this. At this time, the prince looks at the girl and remains silent. A little while later, the young lady is already lying in her bed and, rising from it, she realizes that so much had happened yesterday that she didn't even have the strength to deal with the projectile. And looking at this dress, the girl understands that it needs to be returned to its original appearance and then given to Mrs. Diana. The main character also understands that tomorrow the preparations for the birthday celebration will begin, and she is interested in who will be chosen as the Rose Princess of this year. And she is also worried about what Lewis said and the matter with the mansion, so she has so many reasons to worry. And now her nerves are wondering if someone really put her family into eternal sleep. At this time, someone knocks on the door, and the young lady then tells him to come in. Shiji enters the room and wishes Mrs. Rua good morning. He also claims that today he is acting as her guard and will be with her 24 hours a day by order of His Highness Sven. The main character is then shocked and thinks why he did this, but then she remembers that she had already forgotten that someone wanted to harm her. That's why Sven assigned Mr. Shiji to look after her. And he was already overly caring. The guy at this time still holds out the letter and says that it is for Mrs. Rui from the royal palace. The girl then takes the letter in her hands and thinks whether she really had to from the royal palace. After all, if so, then this could be evidence confirming her right to own the mansion. However, when the girl looks at the letter, she screams that there must be some kind of mistake. After this, the girl only rushes to the secret place where she and the prince meet. And when she goes inside, she screams out whether Sven is there because she needs to clarify something. The prince then only says that it is good that she came and he was just admiring the buds of white roses that had just blossomed, after which he tells her to look. But the main character claims that she will look at the flowers some other time, because there is something more important to do, after which she shows this sheet and asks what it means that she was recognized as the Rose Princess of this year. And was it really he who nominated her? The guy then replies that he would like to say that everything is exactly like that, but it was not him, and the guy thinks that this idea belonged to his brother's fiancé. The main character then wonders if it was Mrs. Diana, and the young man claims that, moreover, there were many people in the royal palace who supported this decision in connection with the fruitful work in the Redmond case, and the decision was almost unanimous, except for some individuals. The main character then thinks that probably one of these individuals was His Highness Sarid, but it is worth noting that it was Mrs. Diana who nominated her candidacy. At this time, the prince asks if the girl would like to become a rose princess, but the main character says that this is not the issue, and that she is simply the worst candidate for such a prominent role. However, the prince then claims that he thinks Rua is perfect for her, and he wouldn't mind seeing her in a rose princess outfit. The main character is only embarrassed after this, and the guy asks if she thinks that this will also be very useful for their plan of revenge. The girl asks how this will help the plan, and the prince claims that this opportunity will publicly raise her status, and her words will have more weight, which will play an important role in exposing the crime of the head of the clergy. The girl answers that this is indeed so, and in this case, he says that she will play the role of the Rose Princess perfectly and will earn the trust of the audience. Well, then the young lady asks, what about another princess? And the guy then claims that unfortunately this year the person nominated by the temple will be Lady Torbius. The girl is in the temple at this time and turns to Galt, telling him to look. After all, this is a special veil that only princesses of this height wear. So the girl asks if she is not beautiful. The guy then turns to Ariana and claims that he understands that the girl wanted to show her to him, but claims that a gang of criminals is rioting in the city, and the Knightly Order received a request for help. But every year, closer to the beginning of the ceremony, there are those who lose their composure. The girl then asks why he is doing this, and the young man thinks that she doesn't understand and says that forcing him to come to her at such a time is a bit too much. After all, as he already said, he also has his own responsibilities. Well, after that, the girl just gets angry and asks if he can't delegate this to his subordinates. And he just had to praise her because she will become a princess for the 3rd year in a row. But the guy says that it doesn't mean that. However, the girl then interrupts him and asks what is more important to him, Aerie or his duties. The guy then claims that it is not good to force him to choose one thing. Well, the girl then just gets upset and pretends that she is crying, after which she claims how insensitive Galt is. After which the young lady asks if he hates her. The guy is then only surprised and apologizes, after which he claims that he shouldn't have been so rude and of course he doesn't hate her. The young man hugs Ariana. The girl then just honks her nose and asks if simple words of apology are not enough because he hurt Ari. At this time, the girl thinks how sad this is, because they say that Rua will become the 2nd Princess of Roses, because this is so disgusting. Therefore, the girl understands that she needs to quickly find a way out of this situation and see for herself how this defective saint will fall. The main character is with the prince at this time and asks if they will be with Ariana. His Highness then claims that he took countermeasures by assigning Shiji to her, and he thinks that the head of the clergy will not take any rash actions until the ceremony is over. However, he does not know what might come into this girl's head, and he should not forget about the ill-wisher who poured water on her and pushed her down the stairs. The guy claims that they will move on to the next stage of the plan immediately after the celebration is over, and he hopes that it will be without incident. The main character then replies that she understands and then turns to Mr. Shiji and says that she is going back to the beginning. Thanks him for agreeing to guard her. The guy then says that there is no need to thank her because he will do everything possible to protect her. And the prince then claims that she will become the official owner of the mansion immediately after the end of the celebration. And the girl understands that probably Sven spoke about this with His Majesty, and she is also still worried about what Louis said. But now she understands that it is better to concentrate on the primary thing, that is, on her role as the Princess of Roses. At this time, the guy claims that he needs to return to the palace and asks if the girl is leaving from there, to which she agrees. Well, when the young lady and the prince leave together, the same lady who pushed her down the stairs watches her from behind a tree. The girl then claims that her master Sven is as handsome as ever. Well, she doesn't understand why he's seeing this girl off because she's not his fiancée. The brunette then thinks that Rua Restado is a bad girl who is fooling Mr. Sven. Therefore, now, biting her nails, the brunette understands that she will never recognize such a girl as the Princess of Roses and must drive her away. After which, the young lady takes her pendant, and when she opens it, she looks at the photograph of the prince inside, and asks Togo to just wait a little. At this time, the main character realizes that the birthday celebration lasts 3 days, and the chosen princesses go around the capital of the kingdom for the first 2 days and distribute roses grown in the temple to the people. The subject who receives this sacred rose does not give it to her 5 days before the end of the holiday, and in the evening of the last day on the stage of the royal capital, the Princess of Roses will perform a melody on the piano. The piece is dedicated to the goddess Rush, and it is believed that she was a great fan of this instrument. After the melody is finished, instead of applauding, people throw sacred roses, and this is a special tradition of the holiday. So now the young lady understands that giving out roses is not a difficult task. But the problem is playing the piano. After all, since she came to the temple, there has been no opportunity to touch the instrument, so she is going to take a few lessons from the previous Princess Rose. After this, the young lady turns to Sir Siji and says that you listened, and the guy at this time asks if Lady Rua has a request for him. And the girl then says that even if he is assigned to be her guard, he is not obliged to accompany her even here. However, the guy then claims that His Majesty Sven's order was to protect her and not leave her alone for a moment. So now the young lady thinks that the guy is still reliable. And Shiji at this time claims that, however, he should have told her one thing a long time ago, after which asks to be called simply Shiji. The guy claims that other polite forms of address are inappropriate. The main character then tries to object, but the boy claims that Mrs. Rua is a valuable person to His Highness, so he should also treat her with respect and hope that she will treat him accordingly. The young lady wonders what he means by a valuable person, and she is just an accomplice, after which she says that then in public she will keep the previous treatment. Well, when they are alone, she will call him by name, after which the guy smiles. And he says that let the lady do as she wishes. The main character then says that Shiji is really ready to do anything for Sven, and the guy then claims that His Highness saved his life. Shiji understands that Sven cares about him and tells people that he is from a provincial town in a western country. But in reality, the guy was from the slums and was abandoned on the side of the road and also survived by swallowing dirt. Overcoming everything, he tried to get out of such a life by adopting knowledge from merchants he met by chance, and gaining experience from hired soldiers. People who called people like him an eyesore accused him of stealing, and once the rich people almost tortured him to the point of falling into eternal sleep. But at that very moment, it was the prince who saved him, and he claimed that he had been following his movements for several unrealistic periods. Because the guy caught his attention while he was on a trip, and the young man is still too talented to fall into a frantic sleep there. Shiji then looked at His Highness in shock, and after that, the prince asked the guy if he wanted to serve him, since he had nothing to lose. After which, the prince helped the guy get up, and now Shiji claims that from then on, his life belonged to His Highness, and he would carry out any order for the sake of the goal he had set. The main character then realizes that she and Shiji, they are similar because Sven also extended a helping hand to her. It was then that he gave her a reason to live, so the girl can confidently follow her goal. And now the young lady understands that for the sake of her own retribution, she too must play the role of the Rose Princess perfectly. After which, the girl opens one of the doors, but when she enters, she is a little surprised. He thinks that this lady was the Rose Princess. This girl's name is Nurni Sandra, and she is the only daughter of Chancellor Sandra, and like her, is a candidate for sainthood. However, the girl prefers solitude, showing no interest in social life at all. But despite this, because of her high social status, no one criticizes her as they did with her, and the girl performs her duties indifferently and with restraint. Among the candidates, Nurna Sandra is the only one who has a higher origin than Ariana, and the main character now thinks that she doesn't know at all what kind of person she is. And she can't read minds, after all. It's probably just her imagination, but it seems that way. The brunette at this time asks if this is Lady Rua Restato, and she claims that she received a request from the royal palace asking her to explain to her the nuances of the role of the Princess of Roses. The main character then answers, and thanks her in advance for her help. But the girl at this time only bites her lip and asks why they chose someone like her. The young lady then apologizes and asks if the girl said something, and she only says that she misheard. Nern then states that her job is to teach the girl how to play the piano, which is demonstrated on the last day. But before they begin the lesson, then the girl asks if she can ask her escort to go out. After all, this is a private lesson, intended only for the Rose Princess. The main character then exchanges glances with Shiji and nods, after which the guy says that he will do as they wish and will wait at the door. However, after this, he says that in case of emergency, he asks him to understand that he will break in without permission. After which, the young man says that this is all and asks to be allowed to deviate. The main character then begins to hear the indignation of this girl, and the brunette at this time says that she is with Mr. Shiji and also with Mr. Sven, and the girl asks why this girl gets everything for free. Rua at this time turns to Lady Nurna and asks what happened. The young lady also understands that she heard Sven's name, and the brunette, hearing how they were addressing her, turns around and asks what is going on. But at that very moment, the pendant on her neck breaks off and falls to the ground. The main character then bends down to it and picks it up. But looking at this pendant, I realize that it is very familiar. And it even looks like the stone that the girl who bullied her had. At this time, the brunette snatches the pendant from the girl's hands and screams for her not to touch it. After which, she squeezes the pendant in her hands and only gets angry. And the main character thinks about what happened. The girl then asks for forgiveness for such a violent reaction, after which she suggests returning to the main problem. And Rua then agrees. But she still understands that without a doubt, this pendant belonged to the one who doused her with water and pushed her down the stairs. However, the main character understands that she cannot judge her with questions having only such an insignificant piece of evidence. And the girl wonders whether the reason for her actions was the fact that the princess and the rose chose her or something else. But the young lady then thinks that for now she will keep quiet and see how the situation progresses. The girl at this time claims that there are a number of points that need to be understood in order to learn to play a melody on the piano, after which Nirna stretches out his hand, but then says that aristocrats study such melodies during their education. Also last year, Ms. Ariana performed a tune called Rose Thorns. She chose a prayer composition. The main character then looks at the notes and understands that all these melodies are of a high level of complexity. Ariana is skilled in dancing and playing the piano. The brunette at this time claims that even though the girl won't play as well as they do, she also comes from a noble family, so she can handle at least one of these. The main character then understands that this girl is speaking caustically and looking down on her, and doesn't even try to hide it. The girl then claims that she has problems, actually. This doesn't mean that she can't. Rua also claims that her late mother's talent was something that was talked about in social circles. The brunette then asks if there were any conversations in social circles, and she had heard that her skills were very poor. And the main character almost becomes furious about this, and realizes that now the girl is making fun of her mother too. Nern then asks what the girl is going to perform, and the main character says that if she had to choose from these, she would perform the maiden song. The young lady realizes that this is her mother's favorite song, and the brunette at this time asks if she wants to perform such a complex melody, and whether it would be better to choose another one. After which she points to one of them, and the main character thinks, isn't this a ballad for children, and if she performs it, she will undoubtedly become a laughingstock. And Nern at this time thinks that she still doesn't understand why they chose this idiot for the role of the Rose Princess. The girl remembers how she sat next to her father and cried, and also asked why she was the Princess of Roses this year. Rue, not her. Restato. The man then turned to his sweet daughter and asked her not to cry. He also changed and claimed that her name was raised this year, but many votes were cast for this girl. However, the brunette girl then screamed, does this girl even have flaws in her healing abilities? And besides, she is an orphan. But she also understood that, despite this, at the reception with the Viscount, Mr. Sven behaved at ease, despite the fact that she was his bride. The young lady's father then turned to her and insisted that the girl should not forget that it is practically impossible to become a Princess of Roses for 2 years in a row. But the girl then claimed that Mrs. Ariana and the Torbius family were able to do it. And the man then claims that this is all because she enjoys the favor of the head of the temple and has been nominated for several years in a row. But the girl then, still crying, insisted that it was unfair. And after all, he had promised her that on the day of her mother's immersion in eternal sleep, that he would do anything for her. The man then apologized to his daughter and claimed that he would buy her everything she needed, so let the girl just heal her wounded soul. He also said that it was late, so let her come in and rest in her room. After which the young lady goes to her room and realizes that she wants only one thing, and that is Mr. Sven. The girl goes into her room and starts worshiping the prince. The girl claimed that he always looks only at that girl, and also asked how long she should wait for a glance in her direction. The young lady understood that she did not need the title of Princess of Roses, and she only hoped for her father's help and wanted His Highness to look at her again, wanted to see him again from the moment they first met. The girl also claimed that she was his fiancée from the very day he looked at her and smiled. Igor, her thoughts return her to him. The girl also thought that no matter what dirty methods she had to use, she would become a Princess of Roses and would undoubtedly please Mr. Sven. The girl then said that she would eliminate Rua Restato at any cost. That's why now the brunette is saying that after Lady Rua, she should at least show a slightly decent performance. And she can calmly practice on this piano in this hall, and she will come again to look at the state of affairs later. So if she does not have an ounce of confidence, then she can refuse. The main character then understands that she was constantly bullied in the temple, and she did not have enough courage for this. Well, even just looking at her as if she were a non-entity, The girl is sure that the brunette will refuse, and even now she can't answer her properly. And the brunette now says that they will see each other then. Shiji enters the room and addresses Mrs. Rua, after which he says that there is a strong sense of hostility from that respected candidate and that she may be a threat to her. So the guy asks whether to report this to His Highness Sven. Well, the young lady then replies that no, and there is no point in bothering Sven with something like that. The girl understands that the brunette insulted not only her, but also her mother. Therefore, now the young lady claims that she will pay her back in the same coin, but in her own way, and the girl understands that she will never forgive her and will return to her the same pain that she caused her, as well as humiliation. Now the main character turns to Shiji and says that she has only one request. The brunette at this time understands that she is not interested in simply beautiful things, and since childhood she was attracted to those that were in some way evil. These could be cursed dolls, pictures painted with human red liquid, or the jewels of executed kings. The girl asked her father only for things with an interesting backstory on the day she met Mr. Sven. Nicknamed the unwanted child, she was struck by the gloomy coldness of his image, hidden behind an elegant appearance. The guy then asked if this was the daughter of Minister Nirna Sanda, and he also said that he was pleased to meet the girl. She understood that it was what she understood at that moment when Mr. Sven smiled at her. This is what he is also very much a novel to her because it was a mental connection. And to those who can understand Mr. Sven, only she was, and only she would be suitable for the role of his bride, and only she could be it. It can be said that from that day on they never met again, and the girl humbly waited for him to come and take her when the time came. However, now she is wondering why the guy chose someone else, because this defective saint only wants to cause him more pain. But now the brunette thinks that it would be okay if she refused the role of the Rose Princess. But 3 weeks have passed since then, and there are only 3 days left until the celebration. And in the end, there is no talk of this girl's proper performance. But suddenly the young lady hears a melody and wonders if it is called applause in broad daylight. But this melody is very complex with passages and a fast rhythm, and even she cannot perform it. And the girl thinks how perfect it is. But at the same moment she starts running and wonders if this is really that girl. After which she immediately bursts into the room and screams why Lady Rua is playing this. The main character then greets Mrs. Nirna, although she says that she thinks it is not very polite to suddenly come in and interrupt a person's game. The brunette only becomes furious after this, but then still throws the notes from the stand, after which she screams out why someone like her is able to perform such a melody. The main character then exchanges glances with Shiji, but then turns to Lady Nirna and replies that, to be honest, she learned this melody at the age of 7, and it was the last melody, which her mother taught her shortly before she passed away. The young lady understands that she did not want to choose this particular composition, but Lady Diana recommended it. The lady with green hair asked if the girl wanted her instruction on playing the piano, and the main character asked for forgiveness for contacting her so suddenly, but claimed that she came to return the dress and talk about it alone. The girl recalls how Shiji claimed that among the aristocrats, Lady Diana possessed particularly outstanding abilities. The lady with green hair then replied that her performance was undoubtedly approved even by Mr. Sarad himself. After which the girl turned to Louis and asked what he would say, to which the guy shouted that of course he agreed. But then he asked to be allowed to say that Lady Rua was also very good at playing the piano in her childhood years, and she was a very talented child known for the outstanding abilities inherited from her mother. Rua then said that Louis was exaggerating, and the guy only smiled warmly in response. The main character then said that, be that as it may, her skills had since declined and she needed to quickly get them back and also make it before her performance as the Rose Princess. So she hoped that Lady Diana could give her some advice. The girl with green hair only laughed after that and claimed that there was a person she did not want to give in to and asked if that was true. And this girl is also a princess of roses. After which Diana grabbed the main character by the hands and screamed about the rivalry between the two girls. After which she screamed that if she were to take it on, she needed to bring it to a shine, and she needed to start with choosing a successful melody, and time was running out, so training should be as diligent as possible from morning to evening. The main character then only screamed that she was counting on her help, and Diana claimed that her management would be strict and asked whether the girl would follow the instructions carefully. The main character smiled after this and claimed that she had already experienced all types of pain. That's why she won't give up so easily. That's why Rua now claims that she won't give up the title of Princess of Roses and will play her role until the end. After all, a person who can only cause pain to others is not fit for the title of Saint or Princess of Roses. The brunette then became very angry and clutched her pendant with the image of His Majesty. She turned and ran to the door. Shiji then turns to Lady Rua and says that she did an excellent job because the performance and her firm position are all as they should be. The main character then claims that she now hopes that Lady Nern will give in peacefully. And the brunette at this time is rushing along the corridor and thinking why this happened. And it's terrible, so she doesn't understand why it looked like she lost. The girl then went into the rose garden and opened her pendant with the image of Mr. Sven. She asked to console her. At that moment, Ariana appeared behind this girl, and she cheerfully approached her and then asked what Nerney was doing there. The girl then turned around in shock and asked if it was really Mrs. Ariana, and the blonde then replied that yes, and it was her. And she also saw everything. Everything that she did there. The brunette was in shock and didn't even know what to say. But Ariana said that everything was fine and that there was nothing wrong with that. After all, Nirna is such a wonderful girl, and the one who is really bad is the one standing in Rua's way. The brunette then asked if she was bad, and Ariana answered her that yes, and the one who makes mistakes is Rua, and Nirni does everything right. Nirna then, as if in a trance, began to repeat that this was so and that this girl was on the wrong side. The blonde then responded that yes, and therefore it was necessary to destroy her. But Nirne then claimed that there were only 3 days left until the celebration, and that it was almost impossible to deprive her of the title of Princess of Roses. And besides, she was protected by Sir Siji. The blonde then told the girl to think carefully. And it is impossible to deprive her of her title, but the girl can still eliminate Rue. After all, there is undoubtedly a period of time when the guard leaves. That's why now the blonde only whispers in Nirna's ear that she will definitely be able to eliminate this eyesore. A little while later, the days of celebration had already arrived, and the main character, looking at the carts with roses, understands that she must give them all to the residents within 2 days. So she realizes that it seems like it will be more difficult than she expected, after which the girl thinks that Lady Ariana has probably already started her duties. And the main character thinks that when they passed each other in the corridor, she behaved surprisingly normally. The girl said that the long-awaited beginning of the celebration had arrived. And they are both rose princesses, so the young lady offered to try equally. The main character just looked at this girl with distrust and understood that she was probably planning something. After all, despite the fact that they are both princesses of roses, they rarely cross paths, because they replace each other in the city every other day. So the next time they will meet only on the last day when they play the piano, and the girl thinks that everything will really happen there. But she still doesn't understand what the blonde has prepared and whether she should worry. At this time, Shiji turns to Mrs. Rua and says that it is time for them to go. The main character then agrees, but understands that she is still nervous about going to the city, after which she asks if Shiji will accompany her now. The guy then claims that 2 more nights have been assigned to the lady, but he will still follow the decree of His Highness Sven. At this time, the prince also appears and says that this is for sure and the guy will follow his order. And the main character is a little surprised and says that they have not seen each other for so long because of his business with delegates from other countries, after which he asks if he is busy today too. And the prince asks if she is talking about those ill-mannered messengers who suddenly visited them, declaring that they were interested in their traditional state holidays. However, they are more interested in a wild lifestyle, so they are nothing but a nuisance. And the brother wanted to dump the role of ambassador on him, but he forced him to do it himself and ran away. The main character then thinks that His Highness Sarid must have been furious. Meanwhile, Sven claims that he was on the verge of death from loneliness and could not meet her. The young lady now says that he is exaggerating. Well, the guy at this time turns to Shiji and says that, unlike him, he can be with the girl all the time. Shiji then doesn't even know what to answer and asks for forgiveness. But the young lady then tells the guy not to apologize, after which she turns to Sven and tells him not to tease him. The main character also thinks why everything is like this when she is next to Sven. That can breathe a sigh of relief. The young lady's nerves had been on edge for the past few days, all because she hadn't been able to meet Sven, but it seems she was lonely. The guy at this time claims that he thinks it's time for him to go back, and he's even glad that he was able to meet before leaving. After all, he wanted to see her in her rose princess outfit up close. The guy also claims that she is the most beautiful rose princess he has ever seen, so let her greet the people with her head held high. The prince then kisses her hand and states that he is looking forward to her performance. Then he says goodbye and says that they will see each other again. And the young lady, watching him leave, understands that the guy always dispels her worries. When His Highness passes by Shiji, they only exchange glances, and Shiji nods as a sign that he understands everything. A little while later, the main character is already handing out flowers, and people are happy about it. When the young lady hands over the flowers, she says that may blessings come with them. However, when the girl looks at her basket, she realizes that she hasn't even given away half of it. And it looks like it's going to take a little more time, and I wonder how things are going with Ariana. Shiji turns to Mrs. Rua and claims that some individuals may take advantage of the opportunity and attack her. But the knights are also not updated with experience in such things, so he will definitely do everything to protect her, but still asks not to let down her guard. But then the main character sees a guy who just stole someone's wallet, after which she says that he is fast and most likely a pickpocket. Shiji replies that he is, and the young lady understands that this guy is clever at avoiding the knight's gaze and must be a professional. Shiji then wants to say that he will deal with him, but the young lady replies that there is no need for him to interfere with this petty criminal, and if she uses her position, she can handle the situation without making it worse. That's why the girl tells Shiji not to forget that he is her guard, after which the young lady moves on, and he offers the pickpocket to take the rose as well. The guy then just turns around and says no, after which he wants to say something else. Well, the main character says that it's in honor of the holiday, after which she touches his hand and tells the guy not to be shy. But at the same moment, he begins to feel very dizzy. And he thinks what happened because everything is swimming before his eyes. After which the guy falls, and his bag also opens when he falls. And other people's wallets fall out of it. People then look at it in shock, and one of them asks if it's not his wallet. And the other lady then thinks that it's her ring. Another one claims that he should be there too, after which they scream for the pickpocket to be detained. And the main character, after leaving, snaps her fingers and realizes that usually the security here doesn't work so badly. But as Shiji said, it's all because of the holiday. At this time, someone else turns to the young lady and apologizes, but says that it was she who helped catch this pickpocket. The girl says that it seems that the lady's activities are still fruitful. And when the main character turns around, she asks in shock if this is really it. Charlotte. The girl then says that they haven't seen Mrs. Rua for a long time, and the main character then claims that she is glad to see her in good health, after which she asks if it is really Mr. Allen, who is the baker, next to her. The guy then replies that yes, and his wife helped him a lot in this matter. And the young lady asks if he is talking about his wife, after which Charlotte says that, to tell the truth, after the lady resolved that incident with Redmond, Alan did propose to her, and they got married just recently. The main character then asks if this is true and then congratulates them. The girl at this time claims that the funds received were transferred to Redmond's victims, or their families, so that many were able to advance a little thanks to this. And since then, the damage caused by magical beasts has completely disappeared, and now Charlotte claims that all this is thanks to Madame Rue and His Highness Sven. The girl now claims that it was Mrs. Rua who healed not only their physical, but also their mental wounds. Therefore, she is a real respected saint. The main character then only laughs and says that she is exaggerating. However, she thinks that it is still strange because she cannot believe that it was she who healed their wounds using a power that is only meant to cause pain. Now the girl also remembers that she is handing out flowers, and she tells them to take one rose for each of them too, after which he hands them over, and Charlotte then thanks him on behalf of the lady and says that she will still perform on the last day, and she will throw this white rose when it is time for her to perform. The main character then asks how this is possible, and the girl claims that Mrs. Rua probably hasn't heard about this, because it is a custom that arose naturally among the people, and she thinks that tomorrow another rose princess will give them a rose. Well, at the end of the show, people choose the one they have from the 2 roses they have in their hands, which was given to them by a more respected princess, and then the flower is thrown into the air. Alan then says that it looks like a vote, and the young lady then thinks that's how it is. And she didn't even know that a flower is a voice. The guy then claims that the criteria for evaluation are things like good or bad piano playing or the number of good deeds done as a candidate for sainthood, and that it is up to the people to decide. Will influence anything, but nevertheless it is a sign of popular support and can have a good effect on their plans in the future. Charlotte at this time screams that they will support Mrs. Rue with all their might, and Alan will definitely throw a white rose too. The guy then answers that yes, he will definitely do it too. And the main character watching these two understands that no matter what, she is glad to see them happy. The next day, in the same place, a lady with tight hair is already distributing roses. She also tells them to leave her after playing the piano, and also that it was exactly a yellow rose. Glenn at this time watches Ari and understands that he is glad that she is in a good mood. But when the girl saw the huge amount of growth, she began to complain that it was more than last year. But she was still kind to children and the elderly. So Ariana is still a kind girl. At this time, the guy also hears someone crying. It turns out to be a child, and Galt then approaches him and asks what is going on and if something is wrong. The boy's mother then only asks if this is Lord Galt, after which he apologizes, but claims that the matter is in the prose that they were just given, and it seems that there are thorns on it. That is why the child hurt his finger. Galt at this time leans over to the boy and tells him to let him look, after which he claims that it is early and not very deep, but then asks if he wants to be examined by the Princess of Roses. After all, she is a good candidate and will definitely heal the wound properly. However, the boy then claims that he is scared of that princess grew up, so it is not necessary. His mother immediately tries to calm the boy down, and Galt looks at these two with a little surprise. The woman then apologizes and claims that her son was attacked by a magical beast last year and was badly wounded. Then they turn to the temple for help, and the first one who responded at that moment was that Princess of Roses. However, when the woman asked if the respected candidate for sainthood could heal her child, the girl just looked at them with disgust, after which she turned away and claimed that with such a serious condition, Ari probably wouldn't be able to help. The woman then said that it couldn't be, and the boy then grabbed the veil that tied the girls' heads together. The boy's mother then desperately asked that the honorary candidate for sainthood save her son. However, the blonde then only furiously snatched the veil from the boy's hands and screamed for him to let go, and also did not dare to dirty her veil. After which she also left, and the girl screamed that she would not have been able to help anyway. And now the woman claims that after this, another respected candidate came running and healed him. But now the boy screams that the princess is not kind and she could not heal him, and also got angry. The woman then tries to calm her son down and tells him to stop screaming like that, after which she asks for forgiveness and tells Lord Galt not to attach importance to this conversation. The young man then agrees, and the mother and the boy leave after that, and the woman tells her son that they can patch up such a wound themselves at home, so they offer to go. And then Galt thinks, what does this mean? And after all, the difference in the candidate's abilities is small, so now he wonders if that family really meant Ariana. But that girl healed his severe wounds and throws people who ask for help, Ari, I couldn't. Well then the guy looking at her thinks whether it was really she who saved him. At this time, the main character thinks that yesterday was full of difficulties and worries, and it was the second day of the festival. So now the girl understands that today she will have almost no free time. At the same moment, someone turns to the second Princess of Roses and says that it seems that she is not giving out roses now, and also asks if she is taking a break. The boy also screams for the Rose Princess to look at them, and the main character then only smiles and waves at them. The girl understands that even when she plays the role of the Rose Princess and gets closer to the people, she is still followed by security, and this greatly restricts her freedom of movement. The young lady also understands that she has received some government subsidy for playing the role of the Rose Princess, and she naively believed that she would find time to do some shopping, but now the girl still thinks that she can still find something useful in the shops. Then the main character's gaze catches something, after which the girl approaches the stall, and he takes one of the bottles and then says how beautiful it looks. The girl realizes that this red shade is similar to the color of Sven's eyes, and the seller at this time asks if this is really a Princess of Roses and tells her to come in and not be shy. After which the guy also asks if she likes this thing, but only recently he bought this from the merchants. And this thing is a perfume made from a rare flower that grows only in the southern island state. And also not only the bottle is amazing, but also the aroma itself, so now the guy asks to smell it, and when the young lady does so, he understands that she agrees, because it smells great. And it feels not only fresh, but also sweet, so it reminds her even more of Sven. The young man at this time claims that he was told that this scent is loved by noble men of that island, so this thing can be a good gift. The young lady then thinks if she can give this to Sven, but up until this point she had only received gifts, and the guy had given her dresses and accessories. Shiji turns to the young lady and asks if she is accidentally thinking about His Highness Sven, but the main character is only frightened by such a sudden question. After which she becomes embarrassed and replies that if she hadn't answered, she wouldn't have bothered a member of the royal family over something like that. Shiji then states that His Highness is reluctant to use perfume. However, he has long been interested in the culture of the Southern Islands and also hopes to someday establish diplomatic relations with them. The main character then asks if this is true, and looking at the bottle in her hands says that then He should like it too. And then Shiji claims that, to begin with, he can notice that His Highness will be glad to receive any gift from her. The young lady then asks if this is true. Shiji says again that he will be glad, after which the main character thinks for a bit and then says that she will take it then. The girl understands that this is a normal thank you and there is nothing strange about it. When the young lady is already leaving the shop with a wrapped gift, she sees that something is happening nearby and she asks what is going on there. And then CG tells the lady to wait, because he will go and check first. The guy then approaches the crowd and apologizes, but then asks what the noise is about. One of the people then replies that there is a betting drinking contest going on in front of that bar. And this is also the custom of this festival, after which he claims to bet that this year, as always, Malta from the butcher's shop will win. But he also says that the strange young lady in the hood is frighteningly strong. The main character then wonders if similar events are really held in the city. Well then, looking at one of the participants, he understands that this inveterate drunkard is, after all, Mrs. Diana. And if you look closely, that person in the back is Lewis. After which the main character approaches him and asks what they are doing in such a place. But the guy then just smiles and asks if he was really able to see Mrs. Rua. And the Princess of Rose's outfit suits her so well, so her image will definitely go down in history as the best. However, the main character then turns to the guy and tells him not to attach any importance to this, and to explain himself better. After which the young man claims that, speaking frankly, initially as the younger prince His Highness Sarid once did, I planned to take Mrs. Diana with me to secretly watch the festivities, and at first Mrs. Diana enjoyed the time spent. But then His Highness Sarid became busy receiving guests and Lady Diana offered him her help. However, His Highness Sarid only told her to go and enjoy the party alone. Lewis also says that Lady Diana got angry, and since then she has been behaving in an unbecoming manner for an aristocrat. And the main character realizes that His Highness Sarid does not understand a woman's heart at all. But she still understands that everything turned out this way because Sven imposed his eccentricity on him. So now the girl asks if he is the only one accompanying her, and the guy answers that, of course. And the elite guards of the ducal family are waiting in different places. Lewis also says that he couldn't even handle Mr. Lewitt, and Mrs. Rua should know this better than anyone else. The girl then understands that this is the name of her late brother, whom she has not heard for a long time, but the young man was still very little then. Lewis, seeing the face of the main character, says that after the end of the celebration, he would like to agree on a place for their meeting and sort out one issue. After all, it concerns the death of her family, or the girl might think that he plans to mislead her with this evil joke. But the main character then replies that there is no need for his fears. After all, after the celebration, she intends to make a statement, so let the guy explain everything to her properly. Lewis then turns to Mrs. Rua and tells her that she has only become stronger over the years. The girl then only clenches her fists, realizing that revealing the truth will only bring her pain. Then she will accept it and move on. A little while later, the girl is already approaching the stage with the piano, and he understands that this is the beginning of the last day of celebration. People are already gathering around this stage, and one of the girls says that finally the final part of the celebration has arrived. The guys also talk among themselves, and one of them says that his friend should not forget to throw a rose. And the other guy then replies that of course he will not forget because this is the main part of the celebration. After this, a priest comes on stage and asks everyone to be quiet. One of the girls in the crowd then says that this is the head of the clergy speaking, and the guy claims that it looks elegant. The man then claims that the damage caused by magical monsters in recent years has caused great harm to the population, and thanks to the dedicated efforts of the temple, the number of deaths has been reduced. But he is sure that people felt terrible. But that is why the temple and the holy candidates exist at it. That's why they can safely spend the last day of the festival this year. After which, the man with a smile on his face shouts for them to be grateful for the existence of the temple, and they will be faithful to the goddess Rush. People then cry out that the Lord High Priest is right. And he always thinks about the people. The main character then understands that the High Priest, as always, is a seemingly good person and is making speeches about people's souls. And of course, does not forget to incite people's faith in the goddess. But they don't even suspect that it is this guy who is behind the scenes directing all the attacks of magical beasts, and they will definitely remove this mask from him. At this time, someone turns to the Rose Princess and claims that there will be a piano performance, right after which he tells her to come to her so that they can finish her costume, and the main character agrees. After which she turns to Shiji and says that she is going. The guy then agrees and states that he will wait for her near the stage. But when the main character enters the room where her suit is supposed to be adjusted, she is a little surprised. After all, she sees Ariana there. The girl also understands that there have been no more attacks until today, but the girl thinks that she can't relax. Ariana at this time turns to Rua and asks if it is her, after which she also asks what happened because she has such a scared face. The girl, also with a smile on her face, asks if she is nervous before the performance. Ariana also claims that Rua will be performing after her, so the comparison is inevitable. But then the girl also says with a smile on her face that she is different from Rua in that she has a home when she can return and she can be called a worthy aristocrat who has received an education. The main character then understands that this is her completely natural contempt for her, and the blonde at this time says that everything is fine, because if Rua performs well, she will definitely get at least a few roses. The main character then thinks, what is this? And this whole situation is a country. And the blonde at this time only heads to the stage and says that therefore, Rua also should not lose heart and play. But the young lady then turns to Ariana and asks if she can just listen to one thing, after which the blonde turns around and asks what she's talking about. And the main character then claims that when she first came to the temple, the girl spoke to her so kindly, after which she asked if she remembered. Rua remembers how other girls said that she was from the family of the Marquis Restato, and the mother of one girl told her that only Rua remained alive. And the other girl also claimed that it would turn out that you are her abilities, her defect, because the Lord High Priest said so. The lady with purple hair then said that she did not even want to go to the temple at the same time with such a girl, and the main character then understood that she no longer had any home. But at that very moment, someone approached her and spoke to her. It was Ariana, and she asked if the girl's name was Rua. And the main character only answered a little scared and stuttering that, yes. And the blonde then said that the girl made a good impression, after which she claimed that she wanted to become friends with her. Malenko also extended her hand and claimed that she was from the family of Count Torbiaza, and her name is Ariana Torbiaz. The girl also said that she was glad to meet Rua, and the main character now understands that at that moment the girl's smile calmed her down. But now Rua asks if the girl had already planned to use her, and the blonde then says that she had said so about a good impression. And then she meant that the girl gave the impression of being a person who is easy to use. Rua is now in shock thinking about this, and the blonde at this time says that she also talked about this. And she said that the girl was a good toy and also entertainment. So now the young lady asks the girl if she thinks that anyone would want to become equal friends with a defective holy orphan and starts laughing out loud, asking if that's not funny, and Rua is still such a slow thinker. The main character then replies that it's good and she understood her because the girl was like that since childhood. Rua understands that with such a spoiled mood, she could easily lose control and grab Ariana's hand. But what she wants most now is to shed light on her sins and the true nature of the High Priest. The girl also understands that she wants an impeccable place and cannot be led by emotions, and also needs to continue to hide her strength and wait for the right moment. At this time, the priest finishes his speech and says that now the people should enjoy the performance of the first Princess of Roses. And the blonde then understands that this is her turn, after which she says that they need to hurry. And when the girl leaves, the main character tells her that one day the day will come when she will be repaid for all her sins, after which she only says louder that it will be her doing. And the blonde, leaving, only smiles and wishes her luck in this. But then he thinks that this will only work if Rua lives until this moment. At this time, the lady with black hair is around the corner and is now just laughing, and also claims that when Lady Ariana's performance is over, it will be Rua's turn, and then there will be a great opportunity to attack. The girl then remembers how the blonde said that they must eliminate this eyesore. And now the brunette only agrees and also claims that there is no way to interfere because she must erase from her life the people who are taking Mr. Sven away from her. And for this, on the eve of the celebration, she secretly equipped the stage with a simple system. After all, if you pull the rope, the stage will collapse and the performer will have to fall under it. It will be just an unfortunate accident that happened during Lady Rua's performance, and now Nerne just keeps smiling and says that she is eager to hear the last game of this Rua Restato, and will give her a requiem. Ariana at this time performs her piano performance and everyone admires it, and also says what an elegant performance it is. Someone from the people asks, if this is dear candidate for the place of the saint, there was not a Princess of Roses last year and the year before, and she is probably the closest to the title of saint. The blonde at this time understands that she really loves it when the eyes of so many people are directed at her, and all this applause is intended for her. Then the girl finishes playing the piano and bows, and the girl then thinks that soon she will receive a place as a saint. After Ariana's performance, Rua also comes on stage. The girl understands that, of course, Ariana's performance was filled with confidence, and she goes next. The young lady also wonders if Sven is also somewhere there and will hear her performance too. The main character tries very hard to play this melody, but she thinks about what she is thinking about, because the guy is now too busy to waste time on something like that. The brunette at this time only screams that now the time has come and let Rua Restato finally plunge into eternal sleep. However, when the girl is about to pull the rope, Shiji suddenly snatches it, and the girl then, in shock, thinks how he found out about this. However, then someone else turns to Lady Sandra and says that she has gone too far. It turns out to be His Highness, and he then asks, "Is the girl really one of those people who makes a fuss during a great performance?" The brunette is then in shock and does not understand what to do now and screams, "Is it really Mr. Sven?" The guy then only claims that he heard from Shiji that the lady tried to harm Rue. And first, she poured water on her, and then pushed her down the stairs, and in the royal palace, something like that cannot go unnoticed. And although it seems Rua wanted to handle it without his participation, but Shiji now claims that he should apologize to the lady, but he was only following His Highness's order to report everything. The brunette is very scared after this and screams that this is all just a misunderstanding. And the prince at this time claims that they also found out about what the girl was going to do now, and Shiji found the equipment and dealt with it. After which, His Highness asks if the girl understands that even if she pulled the rope, the stage would not collapse. The girl then screams in shock that it was all a mistake and she doesn't remember anything being done with the decorations, because she was simply curious about what that rope was doing there. Niren also cries out, asking His Highness to believe her because she is his bride. But the guy then only says that he doesn't remember her being his fiancée. He then turns to Shiji and asks if he got engaged to this girl. The guy then asks to be allowed to say with all his courage that this statement is wrong. The young lady then asks in shock what he is talking about and says only that it is a mistake because Mr. Sven loves her. And the girl then desperately screams, asking that having broken up their first meeting, she did not become the reason for his completely sincere smile. Sven then just smiles and says that it is hard for Minister Sandrew with such a stupid daughter, and to believe that his own family is dragging him down in such a difficult time. The girl then only asks what he means by saying that she is difficult. And the guy then claims that the royal court has repeatedly expressed the opinion that it is time for the minister to pass on the post to the next person. The girl then only cries out in surprise whether they are talking about her father's resignation. And His Highness at this time claims that in the past years he was indeed more than worthy of his post. But his current actions prove that this is a thing of the past, and it is obvious that his priority has become not the welfare of the people, but his own benefit. And, moreover, a successor has already been found, and his candidacy was approved by the decree of his brother. But Minister Sander did not want to lose power. Their king, who is Sven's father, entrusted this matter to his brother. But the behavior of the minister's daughter, which is about to be made public, will put everything in its place. The girl is then shocked and scared and wonders if everything is really that bad. And the prince at this time claims that it would be nice to make his brother his debtor. The brunette then, with tears in her eyes, asks Mr. Sven to have mercy on her, after which she opens her pendant and asks him to look at it, and also cries out that as he sees, she is devoted to him and loves him. And after all, they are connected with him by fate. And also she did all this for him. However, the guy after that only coldly asks if she really did it for him, after which Palish claims that he does not like intrusive people. And the young lady asks what Mr. Sven is talking about. Well, she also understands that she is very scared because the guy is looking at her as if she is just an obstacle in his path. His Highness at this time claims that if the girl were not the daughter of Minister Sandra, then you would not represent any value to him. But even this value she will soon lose. And the guy claims that he let her get away with insults towards Rua, but now she also tried to hurt the girl, so now he is quite angry. The girl then only falls to her knees and says that she asks for forgiveness and therefore begs him to forgive her. But the prince then replies that he is afraid that for attempting to harm the princess, the punishment will follow immediately, and the girl will not see him again, after which the prince snaps his fingers and at the same moment several knights take the young lady. The girl then screams for them to let her go, after which she turns to Mr. Sven several more times. However, the guy then only turns to Lady Nirna Sandra and says goodbye to her. The girl then only looks at the prince desperately, and at the same moment her hand with the pendant unclenches. The girl understands that she knew that she was charming him. It was that dark coldness that had always been hidden behind the guy's beauty. but he turned out to be a much more terrible person than she thought. And the girl was mistaken from the very beginning, so now she only screams in horror. The prince at this time turns to Shiji and says that for him too this was quite a worry. But the guy then replies that no, and it was an order from His Highness. But it was quite easy since Mrs. Sandra left a lot of evidence, and if Lady Torbius had been in her place, this would not have happened. After all, this girl acts cleverly, and she is as difficult an opponent as their head of the clergy. His Highness then says that he will no longer allow them to do whatever they want, and Shiji bows and says that he will do as His Highness wishes. But then he asks what about the punishment of Lady Sandra, because even though she has fallen so low, she is still a candidate for the place of the saint who played the role of the Princess of Roses. That's why the guy asks if it would be fair to send her to a local small church, since she has no other place as a saint, and that's where they usually send problematic candidates. And the prince then says that it is already possible to speak openly about resignation. But the minister could have retained his position after leaving his post if he had obediently retreated. Well, after losing his wealth and power, parent and child will have no choice but to hide their pride and move to the countryside. But then the prince hears applause, after which he says that it seems that Mrs. Rua has finished her performance. Well, then the guy also becomes a little depressed and says that he didn't listen at all, and maybe next time he will ask Rua to play only for him. Shiji asks His Highness what about duets with the violin, because since he plays the strings so well, he thinks that this is a wonderful idea. The guy then just smiles and then says that it is decided, but before that he states that he must pay tribute to Rue. At this time, people say that the performance of the White Princess of Roses was simply wonderful. One of the girls then answers that she thinks that it is the best thing she has heard in recent years, and there is a very complex melody. One of the guys then says that he doesn't know how a professional would rate this performance, but he was even touched by this melody because it's beautiful, but there's also something sad in it. The girl then takes a white rose and says that she thinks that she can vote for this lady princess once, and the guy then says that he will too, and if he does throw it will be a white rose. Well, the other guy then says that he also wants to throw away the yellow rose, because this girl's performance was bold and bright, so they don't even know who to choose. At this point, Charlotte only cries out that Mrs. Rua performed beautifully, and that only a white rose can be thrown there. After which, she also cries out that Mrs. Rua is the best. Ellen then turns to Charlotte and tells her to tone it down. Meanwhile, the main character is still on stage, and Ariana, looking at her, understands that all her joy evaporated after she heard the enthusiastic exclamations addressed to Rui. And it seems Nurni made a mistake. But she thought that this girl was useless, and probably later she will mention her name as the instigator. Well, young ladies still think that nothing terrible will happen, because no one will pay attention to the delirium of a gloomy madwoman. And the blonde now thinks that if this girl is a pawn, she should at least be useful to the queen. At this time, the priest also comes on stage and says that this celebration ends. And to praise the Rose Princesses for decorating this holiday with their performances, he asks to throw their roses into the air, after which people begin to throw roses. And if you look at all of them, you can see that the number is about the same, but there are still more white roses. Some of the people then say that the performances of the Rose Princesses were wonderful, and some of them say that they are already waiting for next year. Galt then looks at this whole crowd and wonders if the celebration is already over. The guy then sees a yellow rose lying on the floor and thinks that he can breathe a sigh of relief, even though there were minor troubles. But everything went without serious incidents. After which, the young man picks up this rose, and when he smells it, he realizes that Ari's performance was also wonderful. But he was hooked by the melody of Lady Restato, and yet he cannot see in her the ugly candidate who mocked Ari. And also, apparently, there are citizens who ardently support her, and he sees that there are white roses. Still, more than anything, the guy then thinks that it was Ari who healed him. But now he just shakes his head and thinks that everything is wrong, and he did not doubt his bride. Therefore, now the young man understands that he should ask Ari herself, and he will share his suspicions with her, and also praise her performance. A little while later, the guy already enters the room where the lady with blonde hair is, after which he turns to Ari and says that But at that very moment, the guy sees the girl pouring a glass of water on the maid and is very surprised. At this point, the blonde just screams that she said she wanted to drink and asks if such disgusting water can be poured into one's mouth. After which, she also screams for the woman to bring the fruit, and at the same moment, she agrees and runs away apologizing. But the blonde doesn't calm down and turns to another maid and asks if she didn't say she was tired, and they can't even prepare a chair. Then that maid brings it and says that she'll do it right now. Ariana then sits down on this chair and gets very angry. She understands that this performance is a complete disappointment. And although the count has not yet been done, it is clear that there were more white roses. So the girl thinks in what place Rua's meager game was better, and they are all just blind fools. Therefore, Ariana thinks that His Holiness would sooner carry out his plan and she would finally become a saint. Galt then approaches the blonde and addresses her. But the girl then turns to him in tears, after which she screams for him to console the unfortunate Ari. The girl then throws herself into his arms and claims that she is so annoyed that she gave in to Rua, and that it was all Rua who mocked her. And the girl definitely used some kind of dirty trick. The guy is then a little surprised, but says that this is one of the reasons why he came, and that is what he wanted to know. But the blonde then turns to Galt and cries out that he, of course, thinks that Ari's performance was better. The guy is then even more surprised and says that no, neither is he. However, the girl then says with tears in her eyes how cruel it is because he is not on her side either. The young man is then in shock and does not even understand what to do, but he understands that if everything goes like this, he will not be able to question Ari. And now he understands that it seems he himself will have to find out what is being hidden from him. And the girl at this time begins to beat Galt, after which she screams what a fool he is. And the guy then claims that he is guilty and asks Ari to stop crying.